Among the home clutter, a young girl tries to stay afloat. Mother is terminally ill, father is removed and indifferent, and the younger sister is unbridled. The condition of the family is constantly deteriorating, and in the end it leads them to a fatal, inevitable tragedy. After the degeneration, Reborn decides to take the fate in his own hands. He swears to live honestly and save his family from death. Thanks to his abilities, the young man inspires his younger sister, capturing her with new vigor. By gaining respect for others, the hero proclaims with determination, he will certainly change the future. During a break at Kanda, he recalls how a colleague advised him a few days ago. Despite some hesitation, the guy still agreed to the experiment. Now the girl is approaching, full of curiosity. She wants to find out what impressions she left exactly the game she offered to him. With sincere enthusiasm, Kanda shares. He went through the whole game, was incredible, and could not break away from the character's mode. Despite the fatigue and dark circles under his eyes, his face shines pride on his face. Permanent parties and delays in the service did not interfere with all, even in the stressful rhythm of the life of a trading agent. A simple life brings him true joy. Games and anime fill every day with bright colors. Honored vacation after grueling work is perceived as a special gift. The forces left Candida, and he just fell in the middle of the street. In a moment, when the consciousness left him, only the figure of a mother, which had not been alive for several years, had a figure before her eyes. The body of the candle no longer withstood. Waking up in an unfamiliar bed, he looked around. Sleeping his eyes, a stranger has a strange ceiling, which is surprising and anxiety. Only a moment appears in memory. He lost consciousness, waiting for the light to change. Now, when he is in an unknown place, he gradually realizes that a dramatic change has taken place in his life. Seeing his own reflection in the mirror, Kanda is frightened. The child's body appears in front of him. He is a surprise. He carefully examines his small palms and tries to understand whose face looks at him. He fails to recognize himself in this image. Suddenly, a maid runs into the room and addresses him as Rita-sama. Even more confused, he realizes, in fact, he has transformed into another person. Once in a child's body, Kanda was convinced that everything was fine with his body, although a crowd of strangers around him caused a real confusion. The room included a man who politely introduced himself as Garn, a butterfly. He reported that everyone was worried when the owner was faint in the garden. Kanda, holding himself in his hands, thanked for his care, and apologized for his act. Sandid tries to behave habitually, but he quickly notices. His words are puzzled around. Grant solemnly thanks and asks to continue to contact him. The boundless confusion and unexpectedly noble attitude on all sides confuse Canada. From the pantalic around, everything seems unclear, and events are rapidly out of control. Powerful pain pierces the Candy's head when a wave of unfamiliar memories captures his mind. Trying to comprehend the events, he realizes that the body now belongs not to him, but the Baldai. Although the memories of the life of a regular office worker, Candy Hadzim, are still alive, he accepts the truth. There was a rebirth. A new personality emerges before the eyes, and gradually awareness of your own situation becomes more clear. He had to reborn inside the world of Tokarella, which he was so enthusiastically. It was here that there was a minor character named Rid-Baldi, the servant of the insidious aristocracy. Now it comes to him. He has transformed into this character, a secondary villain in another's history, where the main role belongs to the heroine. From the bell called the maid, the room was filled with a quiet anticipation. Ridring decided to act thoughtfully. He won peace on his face when he asked his own age with seeming indifference, seeking to understand the essence of his position. However, he calls his age 7 years. The maid immediately notes that he was recently 6. Stunned with his mistake, the guy tries to settle the situation, but already feels how difficult it is to stay within the new personality. Deciding to take advantage of the moment, the genius asks a maid about the country and his own family. The girl replies that they are in the Magnolia Empire, not far from the lands where representatives of other races live. Baldia's family is an ancient aristocratic race that value neutrality in political intrigues. The guy lives with his father Reiner, mother Nanali, and the younger sister of Melody. Armed with all the information collected, Rid is finally convinced that he was really revived in the world called Takarel. Rita tries to show kindness for the maid, but notices a true fear in her look. It is confused with such a reaction. He thinks what his predecessor was, and what actions could lead to similar behavior of others. Suddenly, it is covered by powerful and bright memories, so strong that the guy falls on his knees, chokes, and panic is raising. People run away, frightening it by calling him. In Rita's mind, understanding is flashed. Once in the past, he probably treated people rigidly, and now the fear of the maid is quite justified. Thinking, he smiles gently and apologizes to her. And then, interested in the name, she replies politely, Don I. Hearing the answer, Rid praises her sincerely. This name is really beautiful. Rita's unexpected tenderness moves her to the depths of her heart, and she admires to serve him. The morning begins with the fact that Don I, with a grabbed smile, wakes a kind. Even half ash, he fades with a surprise, seeing the girl so close, in her form of the maid. Having realized her proposal to help him dress, he refuses, embarrassed, floating shame and trying to hide that only a moment ago was fascinated by her appearance. At breakfast, the genus is fond of the luxury inherent in the life of aristocrats, but it is surprised by the alienation that gives loneliness at a huge table. The question of the location of others is answered that the father is in the capital, the mother is sick and rest, and the younger sister is somewhere in the estate. The genus decides to visit the Melody later to find out about her condition. Together with Dawn, the genus goes to the mother's room, Nunalia Baldia. He does not give him the thought. They never mentioned her name in the game. It only enhances the curiosity of the guy. Who is this woman really? Going to the door, Rita envelops a slight excitement about who is waiting for him at the threshold. The closer he is to the mother's room, the more strange to him. The whole body seems to be protesting, feeling unclear discomfort in this place. Dawn I notes that since her illness he has avoided meeting her, and it is surprising. Inside the feeling is that they have not intersected with all eternity. There is still a feeling in the air that something important has happened between them. Suddenly a voice is heard on the other side of the door that invites him to enter. As soon as Rid crosses the threshold, he is greeted by a gentle smile of the mother, Nonali Baldia. She lies in bed and radiates sincere joy from the meeting. Warmth and tenderness overwhelm her words, as if there was no long separation. The mother's smile gives Rita a whole sea of new, still unknown experiences. He stops in confusion, and then, the rolled legs are forced to fall on his knees, although he does not fully realize what had just happened to him. The eyes blurred with tears betray his reflection, that he actually lies behind because emotions are related to the mother and Nanels, seem to be deeply rooted in the past. Seeing the mother suffocated from the cough, Rid rush heads to her, anxiously asking her well-being. Not only does it reassure him, sincerely rejoice in the meeting, but also thanks for the visit, sighing lightly, learning that everything was fine with him after fainting in the garden. In a warm and trusting atmosphere, they exchange candid words as if trying to catch up with all the lost moments of separation. With a smile of confidence, Rid says that everything is well with him. He proudly announces that he is the son of Marquis and Marquis Mars. She thanks her to her farewell and promises to visit soon. Nanali's smile shook even warmer when she noticed how her son changed. With his gaze, Rid thought with confidence. Having a garner nearby from now on, he was able to test any trial. Full of determination to find out the truth about the mother's condition, Rid persistently requires to tell him about the disease of the nail. Despite all the exhortations, it first refuses. But when he sees in the birth of true determination and unwavering, he finally seems. Before revealing the truth about the disease, he only asks to keep it secret. Finally, Garn is diagnosed with monodeficiency syndrome. The radio is stunned by the herd, trying to grasp all the severity of this news. Awareness of how rare and dangerous the mother's disease is becomes a shock for him. The disease is directly related to the vital energy of this world. Garn tells that the lack of mana leads to a lack of vital energy, which is called mania. The ability to regenerate disappears. Over the years, the body is constantly weak until death occurs. An incurable disease that everyone perceives as a sentence and a terrible punishment. Rid recognizes in her a terrible disease from the game Takarel, and, understanding the powerlessness of its own library, goes to the large library of the estate, hoping to find additional information. Rod meets his younger sister Melody, a girl with a break, old look, and a living interest in the eyes. She asks to stay nearby, quietly interested in whether her brother will be angry. He is fascinated by the unexpected tenderness of the girl. The genus smiles and calls her to herself, offering together to turn the illustrated book. Between them is gradually increasing mutual friendship. Hearing that the genus is going to read her, the fee not holding back the excitement and hastily closes the door, fulfilling his request. Rid, standing next to the Melody, unfolds the children's book, and begins to read aloud. Enchanted, the melody listens closely to every word. In this simple, however, filled with the moment, their connection of siblings blooms with special tenderness and lightness. The time spent near the melody awakens the memories of the past. Memories of the birth of a sister fill him with warmth. Then he was delighted, invisibly pleased her appearance. However, the mother's illness changed everything. Anxiety and pain turned into anger, which in some places poured out in the melody. Now he is aware that it was just a child's way of keeping his heart, unknowingly shifting his own fear to others. In the memoirs of Reed, he brightly emerges, as over time between him and the melody, the invisible wall grew so much that they divided them so much that even at the common table they did not meet anymore. Conveniently seating, he apologizes. The melody jokingly translates the conversation. They say, he should not sleep in the garden. Their light dothpies fill the air with laughter and a warm, friendly atmosphere. Over time, Rid noticed how wise and charming melody. The destroyed ligament is gradually being restored between them. With a gentle smile, Melody suggests Ridu to turn to it simply, Mel. Just like their mother, but only because he is special for her. Such an unexpected gesture moves Rita. He sincerely thanks and promises to appreciate this nickname. The Melody falls asleep, leaning against Red, and it is surprised to be surprised from this quiet moment. Denny, smiling gently, approaches closer and carefully covers the Melody, so that it is warm and cozy. Garn appears and is interested in whether it was with Rita, but he just makes it clear that you should keep silence. Rid is shared with a good one that he read the illustrated book of Melody until she was dormant. Hearing this, a good grateful smile asks for his sister to take care of his sister. Rid with pride and warmth on the face replies, Undoubtedly, I will help, because you are my younger sister. Gain notes that after the genus was faint in the garden, it was replaced. Surprised and markedly excited, the genus tries to hide his true feelings, thinking that he has not really changed. Thinking, the hero realizes that the current behavior is strikingly different from the former. Harsh, cold, and alienated. A tangible burden of responsibility for this change rests on the shoulders, but it is determined not to retreat. Meeting with the mother and Melody opens Rita's eyes to his true purpose. Once upon a time, he became an accomplice of a villain in the Tokarel game, for which he received a severe punishment. Exile, condemnation, or even death. Now, having received a chance to change his future, he will not allow the fatal sentence to repeat. It all depends on how fast and reasonable it will be able to act using a strategy and caution. Rid decides to take the fate in his own hands and develops a clever plan. In order to avoid the sad fate that has met many in the game, he seeks to win the trust of those characters who are usually expected to expel, doom, or death, and tries not to step them with harmful paths. Once away from the capital where these characters usually appear, he is forced to count only on himself. Having realized his complete independence in the struggle for survival and the opportunity to change his own destiny, the hero decides to improve his skills and make money to become stronger. Seeing a sick mother, he again faced the feelings that once filled his heart. Deep sadness and impotence. These were the emotions of the ex-boyfriend, who still pierced his heart. Awareness of how relentlessly fades the mother, torn it from the inside, and the shadow lay on relationships with relatives. But now, the insight came. If it is able to restore family bonds, will avoid condemnation, and maybe get a chance for a sincere and happy life. Rita with pain remembers the past life. The heart shrinks from pity that he appreciated the tenderness of her mother so little as he was nearby. The unbearable pain of impotence when she died left a deep scar in his heart. Now, determined to prevent such a mistake for the second time, he swears again never to live with such regret. Full of determination and unbreakable faith, Rita makes the final decision to save the mother at any cost. Armed with a book, he takes the search for information about possible treatments. Confidence covers his heart. He will certainly find the medicine. Rid proudly declares his appearance. Translated into a beautiful young man with silver hair and violet eyes, it opens a force that strikes the imagination. Due to the unique ability to memorize every book literally, there are no unsolvable tasks. New challenges are only inspiring to test their own boundaries. Breaking into library stacks, the genus suddenly comes across a book, the pages of which reveal the truths known to him long ago. In the world, he recognizes familiar plants, gems, and minerals, the ones that have been encountered in his past life. Suddenly, this knowledge was able to bring good income and provide support for his green experiments. It is fascinated by open perspectives. He is already making plans in the imagination and inventing new approaches. But unexpectedly, all thoughts are interrupted by the news. His father, Rain-sama, finally returned. The genius is preparing for a permanent moment, a long-awaited meeting with his father, Marquis Rainer Baldia, for the first time since he returned to this world. The heart is a crazy rhythm when he moves to the room where his father is already waiting for him. Although the excitement squeezes the heart, and the unwavering determination pushes him to speak about the important. The genius reassures his father, assuring that he has already heard well, despite the recent loss of consciousness in the garden. He sits with all seriousness opposite his father and announces, has two important questions. The father, listening carefully, encourages him to share his thoughts. Rida is going with the spirit, and voices his first request to his father. He asks for permission to master magic and martial arts in parallel with training. It is mentioned that in the initial game, Rid seemed frankly weak, but thanks to persistent training, he could eventually achieve incredible strength. Even having mastered all kinds of magic, Rid, though remained a minor figure, was able to differ in free mode. This forced the protagonist to involve him in complex trials. The genius confidently declares his desire to become stronger, all for the sake of supporting his mother. Although he shot himself for a moment, seeing her powerless, but he quickly realized, "You will not be able to tears." Thanks to this, Rid is eventually convinced of his father. He is quite ready for the teaching of magic and martial arts. Having received the dreamy permission, the guy immediately announces another request, the second in account. The desire to have a free capital does not give it rest. There are many ideas of new products that he wants to bring to life. The father is in a confused manner. Does the son really count on funding without even presenting any proposal? Rid Betts, talking about the son of Bond, does not lose the opportunity to emphasize his fervent desire to gain Marquise's commitment and persuade him to invest in his own development. Despite the fact that the father considers such a large amount risky for the child, he still agrees and promises to allocate the necessary funds. Inspired by such an answer, the genius sincerely thanks him and takes the opportunity to ask for another service. Grid appeals to his father with an offer to start dinner together, complaining that neither he nor Mel almost communicate with him. Hearing this, the father is very surprised at first, but he thinks about this idea. Finally, Ridden and Mel appear at the table, both smiling. Their faces radiate the hope that the relationship between them is gradually being adjusted. During the family dinner, the father appeals to his daughter to ask that he can also call her Mel, as gently as others do. From the surprise, the melody fades and releases cutlery from his hands. Tense silence wraps the room. All at the table kept their breath, watching carefully at its reaction. Melody states loud and confident that she does not allow her father to call himself a Mel. Only her mother and brother have this right. The unexpected reaction leaves everyone stunned. The father of his father clearly gives his confusion, and the maids do not restrain laughter. To discharge the atmosphere, Rid suddenly translates the conversation to another, declaring the desire to look at the possession. The father only nods, ordering to make a carriage immediately. Joy covers Rida when he learns that he will be accompanied by that knight, and he sincerely thanks for it. His companions immediately seem Rubens and Diana. The RIT, looking at the landscape from the carriage window, notes that the Baldi territories are known as the border. The distance from the capital is offset by fertile soils that create ideal conditions for agriculture and trade development. In memory, the memory appears. The idea of planting olive trees belonged to the father. Rid, leaving on the seat, casts his gaze out the carriage window and notes that, although this area is called border, you will not call it a wasteland. Diana warns, there is very little left to the destination. In Rida's mind, a clear opinion matures. He is not just to admire the maritime landscapes. Its purpose is much more important. With the money received from his father, the guy seeks to achieve something essential in this city, the largest on Balde's lands. It is here that Rid steps, starting his own story. Once in the brilliant crowd and exciting beauty of this place, he exclaims the passionate, "Wow!" Diana, noticing his charm, warns, "It is worth staying nearby because there are many people here." Smiling, he agrees. The band goes to a certain building, and here Diana, looking back, expresses doubts, whether this is really the same place. In response, the genius laughs shyly, making it clear that he is fully sure of his plan. Full of confidence, the family is stepping onto the company Christie, and next to him are Diana and Rubens. On their way, an administrator with cat ears appears, who friendly guests. The wonder of her appearance is involuntarily amazed by the read, but he instantly restores his self-control. He tells that a few days ago he sent a letter to Christie-san. The receptionist carefully listens and immediately promises to find out the opinion of her mistress. Subsequently, Ride finds himself in the office of Christie Saffron, the head of Christie. The young woman welcomes her name, and next to her is a registrar with cat ears. In his thoughts, the genius is convinced that everything is the way Garna said. Before him, the only Elfian in Baldia, even a subprisar. Krista offers Reed to go to the guest room. He agrees restrained. Rid and Christie exchange polite greetings, demonstrating restrained courtesy. Rid unambiguously hints at the desire to talk alone, and politely asks his guards to wait for the door. Christie is wondering if he is confident, and Rida immediately confirms. After that, he states that he wants to move closer to the essence, and Christie without hesitation agrees. Very good. Rid suddenly addresses Christie whether she is familiar with skin lotions and hair conditioners. After that, the plot transfers the reader a few days into the past. Immersed in reading, accidentally encounters a familiar plant, aloe. Unexpected discovery. Aloe grows in this world. Recalls aloe-based lotions from his past and thinks whether they create similar means here. It causes interest in the maid, which asks with surprise what the skin lotion is. Rida is shared from the Dona with his knowledge of skincare. After cleaning the face, it is important to moisturize it so that the skin remains fresh and healthy. For the Dawn, this discovery, earlier she did not even think. Rid modestly pretends that he just guessed that it could be useful. Subsequently, contemplating the surrounding fields, Red noticed the spreading thickets of aloe, which has grown near the estate, and immediately remembers its healing properties. The plant is able to treat even serious wounds. The imagination already draws plans to use this feature. Inspired, Red comes up with to make lotions and balms based on aloe and local olives. In memory, there are videos that the hero viewed before his rebirth. They are inspired by the creation of new prototypes. When all the work is shown Christie, she assures that she has never heard of the same thing before, which only confirms the novelty and perspective of this idea. This inspires Rid more often to fulfill its plans. Rida with delight opens cards. He took with him prototypes, which is quite amazing, Christie. It is passionate about the fact that he has already created these products. She with interest asks for permission to test them. The radio agrees without hesitation, and the girl carefully applies the lotion to her hands. Christie tests the product, and enthusiastically exclaiming, does not hide its surprise. Emotions overwhelm her so much that she more than once emphasizes how incredible this thing is. He admits that she has long been worried about dry skin and did not assume that there was such a remedy. Inspired, confidently states that this product will have a crazy success. The genius is smiling, glad that her response is so approving. After testing the product, Christie does not restrain the grip and insistently asks to bring it to the market as soon as possible. The genius leaves her conditioner, hinting that there are many favorable ideas in his stock. After that, they are vividly discussing the next steps in their business plans. Ride appeals to Christie to find 2 healing ingredients that help with a lack of mana, herb root and lunar grass. When Christie received the letter, it seemed incredible that the child could dare to so much a serious business offer. Everything looked like a solid nonsense. But here, meeting Rida personally, she feels respectful. A person who radiates a fascinating confidence stands before her. She reveals a secret. She founded her own company, distant from the family empire, Souffron, first believing that she only takes care of the son of the Marquis. Emma notices that Christie seems to have fun, to what jokingly answers, there are still long hours ahead. With joyful news, Rid returns and reports that Christie has accepted his proposal. It is full of enthusiasm, because now there are great opportunities for the development of joint projects with Christie. Night turns into a real holiday, but even among the general exultation, Rid understands that he cannot relax himself. Memories of possible expulsion or even execution, if you remain inactive, do not give it rest. So he understands that it is necessary to earn so much that you can live on your own. The genius notices a girl standing alone, and he thinks, did she get lost sometimes? Carefully approaching, he is careful if everything is fine. The girl, a little confused, squeezes the cape and shyly murmur in the uncertain zrenia, bez utихомирения. A shy girl confesses that she is lost, and now cannot find the person she has come. The genius, full of distrust of this story, calls himself a representative of the Marquise and offers help. He carefully asks whether she remembers where they parted and promises to spend it there. Before they have time to move on, a man who calls the girl appears, sighing lightly as if he had just found the one who he sought so long. The man sincerely thanks Rita for support, emphasizing how useful it was. In response, Rid smiles and notes, to help a girl who has been in trouble is quite natural. Listening to his sincere words, the girl is suddenly moved. A wave of emotions appears on her face. The quiet satellite of this night trip also notices how its reaction has changed, though it does not give sight. Sighing a sigh of sighs, the Elfian finally finds the prince unharmed and confesses that her heart has been alarming thoughts about his safety. After talking to the princess, the interlocutor notices the surprise in the eyes of a girl sitting on the bed. She does not understand who she is talking about. Now, sitting and blushing from excitement, the Elfian regrets with regret that she never learned the name of the guy who came to her aid. One of the women in the room begins to suspect that she has fallen in love, and this thought makes the Elfian even more aware. Meanwhile, Reuben jokingly reproaches Rita that he would have to ask the girl's name. In the carriage, Rid falls asleep, comfortably resting on Diana's shoulders. Rubens watches him carefully and pronounces gently, noting that he fell asleep. Diana cannot take his eyes off, admiring she saw. Rubens decides that returning to the estate will happen while he rests. Meanwhile, the genius receives the news of the arrival of his mentor, a mysterious Sandra. It is full of confidence. It seems proudly, announcing that from today it will become his teacher of magic. Sandra was solemnly introduced as Sandra Ernest, a mentor of magic. The genius enthusiastically responded, rejoicing in dating. Upon learning if the boy had a case with the magic, Sandra heard in response. He still saw magic only on the pages of books, and never encountered her with her own eyes. Inside, impatience rages before future workout. If guessing is true, he will be able to master all the elements. Meanwhile, Sandra begins his story about magic. To take advantage of this, you need to turn your own vital force into Manu, a source of magical energy. Despite the complexity of the task, she confidently assured the RID that would support it at each stage. She called for her firm determination to entrust her, promising to carry it through the whole process. Sandra leads Reed to a training field, wanting to demonstrate magic in action and help him better imagine how everything happens. In her eyes, admiration flashes. It becomes obvious how much she loves magic. Arriving at the place, Sandra is determined, and confidence begins to prepare for his magical power. Fastly ascending into the air, Sandra with confidence calls for a powerful spell of fire. It creates a sphere from a flame and, having directed it down, releases a giant fire layer that explodes on the ground, arranging a spectacular spectacle for proof of its magical abilities for Ree. It is embarrassed, Rid is rapidly rushed to Sandra, fully fascinated by what he saw. Without restraining admiration, he frankly praises the spell, calling it incredibly steep. Surprised by such a warm appeal, Sensei Sandra. The woman faded away, not finding words in response. Read up with shyness, when it was called a sensation, Sandra quickly returns his mood and demonstrates a new focus. She manages to create magic without anywhere. It is only necessary to clearly imagine the right one, and the spell becomes reality. Stroke. The genius is entrusted with enthusiasm to start generating Manu. Her enthusiasm is instantly picked up by the interlocutor. He looks forward to testing it right now. Sandra says that it is only necessary to imagine the right image, and magic obeys without any spells. Seeing inspires Rita, hobbies flash. But Sandra stops the young man right away. It is too early for him. So learning begins with the basics. After focusing, the genius tries to generate Manu. However, attempts begin to knock the soil out of his feet. He is disappointed inside, and suddenly, he is not allowed to possess this power at all. At this point, Sandra appears nearby and, like a good spirit, shares a secret. There is a technique that can help. Despite doubt, he decides to take the risk. Sandra asks to stretch the palm and preparing to show her way. During the method of monoconversion, the genius feels a strong electrical discharge that permeates the whole body. Panic covers the mind. It seems that everything will break. However, Sandra, with a calm, barely noticeable smile, assures that you should not worry, it's just a feeling. In fact, nothing wrong will happen. Inside the red, a strange, anxious feeling is awakened. as if something unknown erupts from the depths of his soul, seeping through his palm. An unusual, almost frightening novelty penetrates every cell. Sandra urges him to suffer a little while. Rid feels as if he was a current. Despite the unbearable discomfort, he begins to suspect that the teacher receives real pleasure from it, and does it intentionally. Rid, with the exhausted body, falls on the floor, as if he survived real torment. Sandra, with a light smile, reports that everything is over, and apologizes. The girl tells that she accelerated the process by applying a method known as a forced awakening of human consciousness. The indignation is overwhelmed by Rita. Why did she not warn him in advance? How strong will this experience be? The genius reproaches Sandra for her sadism, because she does it intentionally, but the girl only enjoys the moment. After he learned about the source of man within himself, Sandra explained in detail the way to transform vitality into mana. Having rudged, Rid is confidently stepping on the tips. He feels a source, tries to turn it, focusing on a powerful compression forces. He does everything as she taught it. Himself, Andra directs Reed, teaching to direct Manu to his fist. It is worth imagining the necessary spell and remembering how she had previously shown a fiery ball. However, the genius falls. Focusing on every little thing, he accumulates Manu in his palm. With all determination, imagines the desired spell and seeks to create a fireball on his own to hit the target. With full confidence, he shouts a spell, and a fire-bluey ball is flashed in his hands. The powerful flow of energy is rapidly piercing the hall, stunning the Sandra. On its face has frozen the expression of a true surprise. Filled with joy, Rid in delight exclaims that he has managed to impose a spell, and immediately calls Sandra, enthusiastically recognizing her skill in the game. She notes that it is extremely difficult even after mastering the transformation of man. Despite this, her really striking his ability. It was enthusiastically noted that his imagination is simply astounding, and he himself is quite possibly a real genius. Reds shine from grip when all the fireballs are striking. Inspired by success, he dares to use the spell even without a single word formula, and miraculously reaches his own. Sandra is stunned by what she saw. She enthusiastically calls him a genius. However, the mana's stocks soon are exhausted, and he confesses that he has admired too much. After that, everyone agrees. It's time to return to study. Red is wondering if there is a way to restore mana, but Sandra explains that it can now be returned only naturally. Despite the attempts by many countries to create special means for this, none has succeeded. It adds that the more often this Manu is used, the greater its stock. Then it begins an explanation of two main categories of magic. A special magic, which belongs, and the technique of forced transformation, and the magic of attributes, which involves the transformation of mana into the elements: fire, water, wind, and others. Sandra notes that magic is extremely diverse, and assures that one day the genius himself will be able to create his own spells. She advises him to continue to exercise in the transformation of mana. Inspired by the opportunity to know more, Reld with passion is immersed in training, feeling the real pleasure of what becomes more agile, and is able to every time more. Meanwhile, one of the guards with anxiety watches the boy and calls him, feeling anxious. Rubens notices the strange movements of Reed and asks what he does. In response, the genius asserts that only needs, although Rubens has not yet been able to see such gymnastics. It is then that the genius understands. In this world, they have not heard about gymnastics, so Reld thinks whether his behavior does not cause his behavior. However, the habits are not going to leave. At this point, Ruben extends him a wooden sword, warning that today he will show the basis of martial arts. Rida is remembered by past failures. Once his reaction left much to be desired, and confidence is not added, but it will not be possible to evade. Rubens expresses Rida's abilities, emphasizing his talent, and invites combat training. Hearing such words, Rid does not hide excitement. Meanwhile, Rubens orders him to stand in a stand and take up his sword exercises. Having held several trial strokes, Rubens took a fighting rack and suggested that Rita attack the first, as he pleased. With frantic energy, Rubens rushes, but suddenly notices something strange. During the attack, the body unexpectedly takes the initiative. The movements are automatically governed, as if it were managed by someone else. Confusion covers consciousness. What the hell is happening is happening. The pleasant lightness has swept the reel. The body has become more agile than ever. He was filled with joy from every sword wave, and for the first time he really felt how exciting it was. In his mind, the idea is made. In this new world, physical abilities seem to have grown on their own. There is confidence. Perhaps here he was destined to be gifted in everything. The exhausted family is barely holding on his feet. But sincere words of admiration from Rubens give him strength. He is sure that once Reld can even surpass Rainer. But Reld boils from dissatisfaction because he has never been able to hit during a workout. Hearing that Rubens is a friend of Diana's childhood, he has a treacherous plan. It seems that Rita is set to take revenge for your own humiliation. Suddenly, Rid scraps Rubens, Tricky asking whether he does not like Diana. Rubens is completely lost and begins to blush, which only pours the oil into the fire. Rid is not going to stop. It is said that in the whole castle there is only a conversation that Rubens does not dare to get closer to Diana. The courage and recognition is lacking. Rubens's attempts to deny it only give it to his head. All the truth is written on the face. Rubens falls in the ground after jokes, unable to say words. Rid looks in a confusion, thinking that he has accidentally affected the painful theme. Meanwhile, Diana appears nearby and is interested in what is happening. Seeing what happened, she immediately understands everything and immediately calls Rita, who is nervously removing, worried. Diana notes that Rubens sometimes behaves strangely and is in this condition again. For a long time she wonders what Rid said to bring him to it. Rid hesitates, but in the end he confesses. Rubens is a true coward as soon as it comes to her. A moment, and the mood changes sharply. The air seems to be thickening from the tension, and Rid himself begins to understand that he apparently bent the stick. Angry Diana fits, radiating threatening energy, and warns that a serious conversation is waiting for Rita later. Meanwhile, in his imagination, she appears to be a real demon who is crazy about rage. The fright covers Rubens as he notices it, and in a moment a loud slap is heard on his cheek. Without being at all, "What is happening?" he exclaims. "What have you forgotten here?" Rubens acknowledges that today's workout with a genus is completed. It is too impressed with his confidence in Diana, which with a predatory smile hints that she needs to discuss something with the genus. He only nods, barely hiding excitement. While Diana went away in his accompaniment, Rid suddenly realized, now she undoubtedly heads the list of those with whom it is better not to joke. In addition, this case has taught him to be important. Never interfere in other people's romantic stories. Mel, with delight, notes Rita's skill in reading illustrated books, especially impresses as he gives each character a unique voice. Listen to such stories for her real pleasure, but Rid admits that he has been experiencing some pressure lately, as if Mel will surely be upset if he stops sounding of heroes. Even when it dries in the throat, it does not stop, feeling the joy of how Mel's eyes shine. The mother enthusiastically notes the talent of Reed, comparing it with a prominent actor. Mel, glowing joyfully, boasts that she inspired him for this step, and demands that she be praised. The final scene is painted with warmth. Mother and daughter are hugging, giving each other tenderness, and Rita silently watches this moving moment. It turns out that the mother of the Reed is suffering from severe illness, a monocytitis that is deadly, although it is not inherited. Only chosen in the family know about her illness. At first, she looked cheerful, but gradually the weakness takes her own, and the woman finds a reason to stop the conversation, referring to the visit of the guest. The genus notice her unnatural pallor, and Mel, with a cheerful smile, says goodbye to her. CRIC demonstrates 2 bottles and gladly reports that sales are successful. Since he passed the samples of the lotion and air conditioning, their meetings have become more frequent. It is thanks to its support that everything goes like oil. Growing ingredients, factory preparation, all processes move confidently forward. RID is frankly delighted with such rapid changes. The genus expressed the admiration of Chris for her professionalism, and in response, she emphasized that success became possible only through his financial support. They were ahead of them a new stage, the scale of production. Chris tells how important it is to teach people the basics of healthcare and proper use of medicines. By peering into the world of different types of skin and features of different races, it easily explains how important it is to consider these nuances when care. Her deep knowledge is a true admiration. Rid thinks about how to protect people from the danger of false products. To achieve this goal, it identifies 3 key measures: customer service with detailed instructions and a clear return policy, developing a logo based on Baldia's generic coat of arms, and managing stores with the support of 2 proven companies. All this is designed for the safety and trust of buyers. Hearing the proposal to become the face of their products, Chris does not hide surprise. Smiling confidently, he assures that she can handle this task. A few days ago, the genus met with a man who suggested presenting goods to the imperial spouse. However, instead of going alone, among all the candidates, the genus chooses Chris. Her sophistication and beauty, in his opinion, will best emphasize the benefits of cosmetic offer. The anxiety permeates him. Too young can negate all the conversations about beauty, because it is unlikely that adults will perceive the young man seriously. The product is convinced that as soon as everyone does not notice how incredibly charming Chris with these means looks, men will massively want to give them to their wives and daughters. The man agrees to the proposal, assuring that he will take a company representative with him to the capital. Unexpected maturity of the genus is surprising in all present. Surprisingly, whether the whole 6-year-old child really created it. He, in the meantime, watches as Chris, despite his considerable pressure, he sincerely promises to put into full. In the light of the moon, the RIT considers the grass carefully, a rare medicinal plant that Chris has instructed to search. I am convinced that proper processing can slow the course of the mother's ailment. He secretly works on it, trying to protect the most expensive person. Chris reports that the roots of the grass have not yet been found, but asks not to lose patience and promises not to stop the search. Meanwhile, RID organizes cosmetics production. The ingredients will be grown on its lands, and partners will take on the manufacture, logistics, sale, and maintenance of customer. Some of the profit will come to him personally. By regulating these issues, it switches to the development of the next product. A few days later, Chris, along with his father Rita, went to the capital to present cosmetics to the imperial spouse. Rid prepares monosol from lunar grass, hoping at least to partially alleviate the mother's condition. She realizes that this will not be enough for full healing, but considers the drink as a temporary salvation until he finds a true remedy. But suddenly there is an obstacle in the way. There is a lack of deeper knowledge in pharmacology. One of the men proposes to seek help from Sandra, which is well understood on this topic. Rid demonstrates her medicinal herb she found. Seeing the plant, Sandra asks in surprise what it is. The man says that this plant has the properties of restoration of human strength. The discovery is stunning Sandra. She finally realizes the true value of this amazing grass. Sandra immediately recognized the rare lunar grass, and a shocked breath escaped from her mouth. It turns out that this plant really exists. It is embarrassed, she confesses Rita, who previously headed a research laboratory in the capital and just studied the mana potion, the ones he needed now. Such unexpected coincidence causes genuine surprise to Rita. In the memory of Sandra, the times when she first found herself in the capital, passion for magic and deep knowledge revealed her way to the post of director of the laboratory. Side by side with the strongest magicians, she plunged into work on the creation of a monosol. However, something strange happened. The goods that were to come last week have not arrived, which caused suspicion. Noticing that the delays are again aware of themselves, Sandra feels anxious. They were about to declare a breakthrough in research, and a new breakdown on the horizon. She decides that it is necessary to immediately review the formula, and rapidly goes to the laboratory, competing with time. On the course, he accidentally faces the woman, apologizes quickly, and without stopping, goes on, without noticing how someone closely watching her from the shadow, suspecting the unlawful. Small aristocrat blocked the Sandra's way, mockingly, that her presence here is as obsessive as the nasty rat of the muzzle. Meanwhile, Sandra is thinking about the disdain that some aristocrats experience it, in particular because she has taken the service of people, despite their origin or status. Finally, she is aware of the true cause of hostility. Its target became envy and hidden resistance. Due to the lack of significant results in the study, more and more people left the project, and Sandra, taking blame on herself, decided to leave work in the laboratory. Without coping with the will of the emperor, the girl became a target for crushing criticism. Some even demanded that it be executed, and after frightening the possible repression, the relatives turned away from her. Left without support and goals, she reached the bottom. Until something happened, which changed everything. It was when Sandra was on the verge of despair, the Marquis Rainer reached out to her. He accepted her in his home with a mentor, giving hope for a new beginning. After all the trials, she still managed to rise, and now she stands here, unwavering and determined to go forward. Awareness suddenly covers Rita. Asking Sandra to help with a study that at one time destroyed her career, he may have made her survive again painful memories. Finally, he reveals the true cause of his actions. The mother suffers from a mysterious illness that is still not medicated. The only hope is to create an elixir that will allow you to win time and save your life. He moves to Sandra to help with this difficult mission. Looking at Sandri just in the eye, Rid speaks with frankness and firm determination. He needs it. He asks to join the creation of monopotion, emphasizing what without it, this goal remains unattainable. Sandra, stunned by such sincerity, listens to the silent, begged by an unexpected appeal. Moved by the request of Raidi, and remembering how he was once helped, Sandra gives her consent. She promises to do her best to save the nail. Rid, overflowing with emotions and relief, thanks to her, squeezing her hand firmly as a token of gratitude. Having received the promise of a new RID research center and the confidence that Christie will provide everything necessary, Sandra enthusiastically plunges into a job full of determination. In the memoirs of Sandra, he emerges, as in his time, still working in the capital. They never managed to get the lunar grass, despite the fact that everyone knew. It was a key component. There is no trace of the plan in the old laboratory, and now it has been a chance to start over. During the work, the unexpected thought of something important suddenly illuminates her, and she calls Rita. With a smile on the mouth of Sandra, he turns to Rita. In conversations with each other he can simply call it Sandra, but during the lessons only, Sandra-sensei. Grabbing a grass that resembles a silver moon, it radiates pride, and Rid smiles in response, finding something funny in this scene. The tension between them dispels, and the conversation is gathering warmer, trusting shades. In thoughts, Arit draws tests of trials that his father and Chris are likely to face in the capital. Meanwhile, the atmosphere becomes tense. Chris stands in the circle of armed soldiers, and his whole being gives off anxiety. The situation is clearly difficult. The woman from the capital is enthusiastically responded to lotion and air conditioning, calling them amazing. After that, she makes an offer to acquire the right to production and the recipe for the Magnolia Empire. The proposal causes Chris by surprise. At the same time surprised and alarmed, he instantly calls Red. During a short stop on the road, Rainer reports that they almost got to the capital, and warns Chris about the dangers that are chatting in this city, advising to carefully monitor their behavior. Despite all the risks, Chris flashes determination and excitement, taking this situation as a rare chance to demonstrate his business abilities. Imagination draws the fascinating prospects of success, and she sees herself with inspiration. From a height, the city seems even larger. The heart of the capital captures its scale and beauty. Although Gers has already been here, the grandeur of this place every time causes her a genuine admiration. The landscape fascinates it so much that it is difficult to find words. This spectacle intercepts the breath. Kiss is enthusiastically staring at the grandeur of the capital's capital of the Magnolia, protected by double rings of powerful walls. Near the castle, there are nobility quarters, surrounded by high walls and surrounded by a moat. Normal city quarters are already beginning with these limits. While Rainer had already moved forward, Chris with his satellite was detained on a carriage. Stunned by the city's scale, the girl notes that even the elves' capitals cannot be compared to this huge place. The guards suddenly interrupt the Chris and its companion, requiring a careful search. However, having learned that these two carry something for his Imperial Majesty, the guard sharply changes the tone. The excitement of Kiss is increasing, but Rainer interferes rapidly, assuring everyone of their reliability. Thanks to this, the security allows them to go on. The band boldly steps to the castle. Passing his majestic halls, Rainer notes that the guards operate on behalf of Earl Roland and are likely to try to explore what Chris is doing and what goods he produces. Assigning that he had not told this before, he takes part of the guilt. Chris assures that he will be more careful. But the conversation suddenly breaks someone's provocative voice, which is a loud "ee-hem," attracts attention to Rainer. Earl Roland appears unexpectedly, seemingly addressing Rainer, and ironically notes how incredible this accidental meeting is. At first he pretends to be surprised, as if he had just noticed Chris, and asks who this charming lady next to him. Chris is politely represented, Christ Saffron. Roland, smiling cunningly, notes that he has already heard about her. Earl Roland Teese, with a mocking smile, recalls rumors that Chris has been deprived of inheritance and expelled from Saffron. After that, he rushes to her companion with offensive racist hints, emphasizing that it is allegedly natural to take a stupid girl. Chris will try to maintain calm effort, while the other girl is clearly embarrassed under pressure from humiliation. The cheeky shine in Roland's gaze clearly hints at the provocation. Chris immediately realizes that the word beasts sounded at all by accident. Roland intentionally threw this bait to cause a reaction. She understands what an appeal to the beast is offensive. Although she is indifferent to her gossip at her own address, she cannot endure Emma's humiliation. Gathering all the determination, the girl is preparing to repel the graph. Rainer reproaches Count Roland, stating that he went too far with his provocations, especially for people who came to their audience. Feeling the pressure, Roland recedes and makes an apology, after which he hastily goes. In a small room, Rainer explains that this man is Count Roland Galliano, a true fanatic of power and wealth. Emma apologized to Chris for the hassle, but in response, she heard only words of support. She was not accused of it. The incident with Earl Rollin led to a clear decision. He was forever banned from any relationship with the Christie Company community. Soon the servant approaches them to bring the guests to Imperial Majesty, emphasizing their justice. Chris snorts his breath and understands. That's it. There is a crucial moment. In the majestic throne, filled with nobility, Chris and Emma finally find themselves face to face with Emperor Arvin Magnolia and Empress Matilda Magnolia. The ruler politely welcomes the guests, apologizing for the delay. The solemn moment marks the beginning of the decisive council. Rainer solemnly appears to the emperor and politely apologizes for the frequent visits to the castle. The inquisitive ruler immediately pays attention to his companion and is interested in who this young woman is. With deep respect, Chris seems to be. She is Christy Saffron, the daughter of Baron Martin Saffron from the Kingdom of Astoria. The emperor, having heard this name, is noticeably interested. The emperor noted that he had heard of Chris's connection with Saffron, but he was surprised by the discovery that she was also a daughter of Baron. The girl explained that her father received the title recently. This thought suddenly impresses Count Roland. He realizes that he has been not the respect she deserves for and significantly embarrassingly. Meanwhile, the impatient empress requires immediately to show the brought. By completing the tension with a confident note, Chris shows the goods with dignity to the imperial couple. The lotion and air conditioner, which she uses herself, attract the attention of all. Men remain indifferent, but the empress, court ladies and maids do not hide interest. One of them, passionate about the beauty of Chris's hair, even wants to touch him, and the girl confidently allows it to accompany a gesture with a glowing smile. The empress gently touches the strands of Chris's hair, admiring his extraordinary softness and glitter. Amazed, she confesses that she has never seen such silky hair. Chris, with a slight sophistication, extends her a lotion bottle, offering to test the remedy. The empress appreciates the product, noting that only women are able to truly appreciate its true value. Earl Roland tries to intervene, claiming that this product is dangerous, and it is sharply stopped by the empress. She makes it clear that his opinion is not interested in her, and now talks only with Christie. The annoyance was on the face of Roland, but the empress remained adamant. Without paying attention to it, she praised the lotion, assuring that he saved perfectly from the dryness of the skin. With a cunning smile, she also joked whether Christie was going to conquer the hearts of all women in the castle. The empress is passionate about it, is one of the best gifts she has ever received. From touching the skin, it seems to fall under his magic. Krista respectfully replies, confessing that it is a great honor for her to hear such words. In the depths of the room, another woman watches everything with a serious, thoughtful look. Meanwhile, the empress, fascinated by the quality of the means, is enthusiastically responded to the lotion and air conditioning, praising their wonderful properties. Unexpectedly, she addresses the question of whether Christie will agree to sell the recipe and the right to produce this Empire Magnolia. The sudden offer is stunning Christie. Both surprise and misunderstanding are read on the face. Suddenly covered by excitement, Christie, with a confused courtesy, tries to reject the proposal, referring to the fact that the decision cannot be made individually, because the Marquis Rainer was also involved in the development. But the Empress assures that no obstacles will arise, because the Rainer is a Magnolian empire and has no right to refuse. Christie has suddenly realized that now all responsibility for the final choice rests only on her shoulders. The vortices of ancient injuries and bitter reproaches will sweep in the memory of Christ when the Rainer tries to intervene and take control. But the sudden sharp voice of Rita tears silence, forcing everyone to listen. The company has invested all its resources in these goods, so if the Empire abuses the authorities and picks them up, the enterprise will simply leave the country. Moreover, he warns, If the capital of the force sets himself the right to inventions, others will forget about innovations. There will be no people who want to create new products, because the risk of losing everything is too high. In search of peace, Christie expresses a diplomatic alternative. Instead of abandoning production rights, it offers the Empress the pre-emptive right, assuring that he will always have access to the product. In conclusion, Christie appeals to Her Majesty, asking for understanding and condescension. The Empress, with a light smile, approves her proposal. She notes, "It would be an unfair forceful to take the creations of people. Such a step would scare away the merchants. They would throw the capital to the capital, and would immediately follow the decline of the empire." The Emperor solemnly announces that the empire will now closely monitor the issues of industrial rights, while confirming that exclusive rights to produce lotion and air conditioning remain under Christie and Baldiot. All present, such a statement instantly leads to obedience. The sudden solution to all issues is striking, forcing her to breathe from surprise. Meanwhile, the Empress winks conspiratorial, a clear sign that the development of events was fully consistent with her plan. The shock covers Christie. It opens the cruel truth. Everything apparently has been planned from the beginning. At this point, Rainer's face is eagerly expressing the true essence of his plan. The confidence in the eyes of the Empress was unmistakably testified. Everything was planned in advance, both the negotiations themselves and the unexpected lightning removal of the deadlock. Krista is finally realized that the Empress has never been interested in the right to formula or production. She just sought to have guaranteed access to means for her own use. Without resorting to authoritarianism or injustice, she cleverly returned the course of events to make a promise. Despite his own influential position of the noble lady, in her eyes, he was just a simple paw in a large gambling board of metropolitan intrigues. The exhausted Christie falls on the sofa, barely holding back a sigh, and Emma watches it with a slight smile. They turn to her with admiration, noting her wonderful work. However, suddenly the report of the presence of the Emperor and the Empress knocks both from the track. Rainer, slowly tasting tea, with seriously remembers his own warning. "I said not to lose vigilance." The Emperor, together with the Empress, appears in the hall, apologizing for having worried the rest of the attendees. In addition, the ruler recognizes his mistake. He has not yet introduced himself. After listening to the explanations of the events, he appeals to Christie for apologies for drawing it into his affairs today. The prototypes of the lotion and air conditioning are almost ready, and the city began to rumor about large orders from the capital. Mighty aristocrats, fascinated by unusual goods from the Baldi, are increasingly interested in the products of the local region. That's how the conversation about exceptional rights has broke out, the only way to restrain someone's greed. Seeing a sigh of sigh, Christie turns to Her Majesty with her gratitude. They say, she is glad that everything has been decided for the better. From now on, when the legal rights to production are officially assigned to Chris, the noble layer will no longer be able to use it for its own purposes. The Empress mysteriously encourages the girl, noting her wit and even confessing that she would like to see such a talented personality among her own maiden. Meanwhile, Rainer and other aristocrats are going to a new meeting. Regular, significant issues are discussed because the negotiations are far from the finals. Empress Matilda, burning determination, immediately goes to the substance and mentions the right of first delivery. Christ is stunned by such perseverance. Meanwhile, in another wing of the castle is revealed, a foreign state has made a proposal for a political marriage with the imperial family or some other influential noble home. This news is a lot of concern. With a radiant smile on his mouth, the Empress directly points to the son of Rainer, emphasizing that only he has not yet found a worthy bride. Her tone clearly shows that it is a political marriage. This additional page shows a cozy hotel number full of memories. The Radiant appears unexpectedly and confesses that he sometimes dreams about himself as a child. After that, the picture brings the reader to the past, where he appears a little boy. Here he calls his mother loudly and joyfully catches the butterfly in the garden, smiling sincerely and innocently. The mother of Rita admires the beauty of the butterfly, but asks her son to release him. She explains that butterflies are fragile living creatures, and keeping them in captivity would be cruel. The genus, still very young, is not aware of what death is, but listens closely when he says, "If you leave the butterfly to himself, he may die." Rita's mother tries to explain what life is, the one who can move and speak as they can now. She adds that when life leaves a person, she disappears from this world forever. Stunned by this thought, Rid as a fearful asks if his mom can disappear too if he dies. Smiling, she gently soothes her son, promising that he will always be with him. Her words turn the boy calm and feel at heart. In Renta's memory, a promise, once a mother once, and the chest, squeezes an alarming feeling. Thoughts turn it to the past, sinking into the memories of his past life. When he was still a boy who loved to catch insects, he could not restrain the wave of nostalgia. Suddenly, the silence cuts a girlish exclamation. She rushes to meet him, shouts his name and laughing with his feet, leaving stunned on the ground. Mel is full of grip, in her palms a chick that she has just found in the garden. The girl proudly demonstrates the discovery of the reduction, and he cannot hold back smiles. The bird seems surprisingly sweet. Curiosity does not rest. Someone is wondering if it is still a chicken. Mel, overflowing with pride, confidently responds to the affirmative. Her face shines with a smile and she asks, "Nietzsche, can I leave it to myself?" Rita's view is delayed on Mel, and the memory of his mother flashes in consciousness. The same strands of hair, the same eyes as he himself. It seems that the best features of both parents came together. He is convinced of this. He decides. Mel will understand everything without words. Rid expresses that the bird should be returned. Maybe it is already looking for parents, just as they once sought them. He notes that even birds are desperately fighting for their own lives. Mel curious thinks about what means to be alive. This is relevant to this with a gentle smile filled with warmth and love. According to the woman, her health slowly fades, like the water that drops after a drop through a crack in a cup. At first it was swept by light fatigue, but soon the strength began to leave the girl. The ailment was slammed unnoticed, and now she could no longer get up without assistance. In the silence of her own thoughts, she thinks whether there is a way to strengthen this fragile body. Every day, the woman faces pain and devastation that torments her without rest. Since then, she had fallen with the disease. She directed all his strength to not consider this void and just reach until the night until she could fall asleep. The hardest for her is dawn. Thoughts on how the disease also reflects on her children eat the soul from within. After learning about her deadly condition, the genus exploded and began to break into others, and Mel flourished with tears, trying in vain to hide the pain. Because trying to be strong, she also felt broken. The genus has changed a lot. His calmness is striking, and adult maturity appeared in words. The mother immediately notices the joy of Mel. With a joyful delight, she shares that her brother read a book. Once upon a time, he lost his self-control, but now recovered and turned into a resistance that was leading a family forward. Such a change becomes a new incentive for the mother not to give up and fight further. A decisive smile appears on the face. It is not going to retreat. Full of maternal love, she promises to overcome the disease and defeat it. Despite the weakness of the body, its spirit remains unbreakable. Life for her has become a meaning, because someone is waiting for her return. Rid is so fond of a cozy atmosphere that it falls asleep for itself in the open sky. Waking up, he is encouraged by the reproach of conscience. While he was resting, his father and Chris were working without stopping. Full of determination, the hero undertakes to improve his magical abilities as hard as he trained in his time in the game, promising himself to make even more effort. The ride thinks that the world around suspiciously is reminiscent of the game in which it once plunged. The need for money forced him to create cosmetics, and these products got into the Imperial family, which never happened in the game. Recognizing that their own decisions are able to change the course of events, Rid understands that by choosing his own path, he can open up new opportunities. Overflowing, the hero goes to a safe place where he plans to test his magical abilities. First of all, it focuses on the fiery element. The genus tests his abilities in front of a giant crystal, and confidently states that he has mastered all the magical elements. Rid chooses simple but eloquent names, such as fiery land or thunderstorms, relying on the main element of magic. At the same time, he remains ready to respond instantly to any unexpected attack. Determined by focusing, the edition speaks of the spell, calling a powerful flame. Faced with the earth, this item explodes with powerful force. After completing the workout, Red is satisfied with a pleasant exhaustion and pride for the result. However, it is unexpectedly covered by anxiety. Mel, as it turned out, was watching everything that happened. The passionate girl Strumhead rushes forward, without getting tired of admiring the magic that just flashed from his palm, and Raid remains behind, puzzled and a little shitted. Rid asks Mel to protect her witchcraft in secret. To convince the girl, she promises to read her favorite book with pictures. Mel shines from the delight, but does not hold, and asks why you need to hide such beauty. She assures that she will be silent, and in a moment she looks forward to Ridata to show focus again. The genius is convinced that as soon as everyone knows the truth, he immediately finds himself in the spotlight, and from it not to avoid unnecessary noise. A letter from Chris, which went to the capital, appears near Red. Opening the letter, the genius faces a chaotic presentation of events. Chris states that Empress Matilda has gone crazy, the district cunningly substituted her, and Earl Rollin was generally removed from affairs. He completes the alarming confession: "I'm in danger." This whole conflict seems impolite, and the interest in the true picture is only growing. He is soon invited to the lessons that reveal the truth. To master certain attributes, an appropriate tendency to them is needed. During the lesson, the teacher wondered if special abilities were needed to master special magic. Rid, having lost himself, exclaimed that he absolutely did not know the answer. The surprise was in her eyes from the lack of ideas, but the sincere answer caused only approval. Honesty always deserves praise. She said that thanks to hard workout, everyone is able not only to inherit, but also to create unique magic. Hearing this, the genius was already blinking from admiration. In the imagination, the brilliant ideas of their own spells began to emerge. Red has wondered whether special magic needs to have a clear image as for the offensive. The teacher confirms and adds that not only a much larger quantity, but also an even more clear idea of the desired result is required to create or imitate this type of magic. In addition, only the leader is endowed with the ability to convey special magic to others. But even under this condition, it is simply impossible to use such a spell without a sufficient stock. From comments, it is known that monthly grass is able to restore manners. Now the main dilemma is how to properly produce and concentrate this force. The teacher, who is passionate about the discovery, begins to imagine what the final product can become. Whether the drink or perhaps even injection. Aroused by unexpected inspiration, she rushes to make new prototypes, leaving the editorial of himself, annoyed and disappointed with the sudden cancellation of classes. Under the thunderstorm, Rid refers whether or not to try to create your own spell, once has enough mana. But suddenly it is doubted. How to determine how much magical energy does it have? There may be a special spell or tool for this. Lightning flashes in the boy's imagination, illuminating the dark sky, exacerbating the atmosphere of uncertainty. Rid rushes home in heavy rain, wetting it to the thread. Its appearance in this form instantly causes a stir among the maids. Surprise is replaced by care. One quickly rushes on a towel, others hastily prepare a hot bath, worrying that it does not catch a cold. Although the genius and the soaking to the thread, it does not lose the vigor of the spirit, apologizes for his appearance, and assures that it is enough to dress. But the maids are determined. After a recent adventure in the garden, they are not going to risk his health. Despite his protests, girls grab Reed and insist, first, only a hot bath. Finally, plunging into a hot bath, Arad is experiencing true relief and pleasure. He has not allowed himself such rest for a long time. In this world, people are usually limited to wet body towels, so a full bath is considered a real luxury. He does not hide the surprise. How did they manage to install a bath just in the middle of the room? Sticking into warm water, the hero allows himself to forget about anxiety and plunge into a carefree vacation. The genius thought about the cost of buying and the amount of hot water used. Analyzing the units of measurement, liters, grams, meters, was surprised to realize that these quantities are exactly such as in his last world. Humped by unexpected inspiration, the hero suddenly admires. This idea can perfectly embody his secret plan. Rita with a decisive look goes to the inner yard, squeezing in his hand the measured bowl, which he just handed him a butt. In this game, he skillfully try on many different roles. Successing on the deck with a confident smile is prepared to check your idea with magic. Rita with water magic begins to fill the measuring mug. The vessel contains exactly 1 liter. And it is this simplicity that the basis of his plan. Fill, pour, repeat several times in a row. The spell gets a simple name, 1 liter. And in this simple way, Rita is about to test the limit of their own magical potential. The genius tirelessly improves his skill, sharpening the spell of the liter. Each time, it fills the cup more accurately until the routine turns into hundreds of perfectly performed magical actions. The fatigue almost took its own, and the forces remained so much. But the red does not lose their care and continually continues to pronounce the spell, concentrated by controlling the flows of water. A stubborn smile appears on his face and he exclaims, "Focus!" Component placement, constantly creating a shape from the fluid in the palms. Even exhausted to the edge, Reld perfectly controls his magic. Having carried out a 1-liter spell 980 times in a row, he is convinced. The feeling of devastation of the man is identical every time. This is how the guy concludes. In his stocks at least 980 units of mana. Guided by this logic, it creates a unique spell, Mona Measurement, which allows you to see the numerical level of Mona in view, even its own. Without spending time, he decides to immediately test a new spell. He utters, "Mono Meeting." Before his eyes, there is an inscription, "Personal Mana, 80. Surprised by a sudden voice in his head, he decides to try again. However, while looking at others, he did not notice any changes. The magic acted only on himself. Joy covers Rita as he hears the spell voice again. It means that the idea has succeeded. However, he notices that his stock has decreased from 80 to 60, so he concludes, 20 units are spent on the measurement every time. Recalling his mother, he has the true value of the spell. When she drinks the elixir that returns the manners, it will be possible to make sure whether the potion really was. With a confident step and a look full of determination, Red holds a bowl from his workout. The smile plays on his mouth, and he proudly says that he has just taken another step towards his dream. The guy confesses that he became interested in how many mana needed for witchcraft. So he created unique magic. Measuring man. A woman stunned and indignant does not restrain his emotions. How did he generally turn that? Her words are imbued with criticism, because such ideas are contrary to any common sense. She does not seem to believe in her own ears and only tries to understand the extent of its discovery. The RIT tells how he invented his magic of one-dimensional dimension, inspired by the methods of measuring water. He created a spell that released exactly 1 liter of magical energy, using it as a base unit for further calculations. Surprise covers Sandra when it comes to an unexpected opinion. It turns out that he also has the ability to magic water. However, Sandra, with a serious look, is warned by Rita. If someone learns about his magic, he can wait for years to work in laboratories without the right of choice. She persistently advises anyone to discover this secret. Rid, on the contrary, hoped to see in her eyes the delight of her discovery. Rid is surprised. Why do you only have to work for creating such magic? Sandra explains that although some researchers are able to generate Manu, most of them live in a completely different world. Ordinary people are not able to create or use magic at all. She notes that only a real genius, or one who has long trained, can achieve such perfect control over charms as he has. Rita gradually comes the seriousness of the situation. His abilities are truly unique and deserving of admiration. The genius thinks that although magic seems an integral part of this world, it is actually limited to the use of only a few areas. The army, the study. It seemed strange to him that no one was using magic in the estate, but now it became clear. For most residents, these forces still remain an unattainable dream. Having realized how rare magic is, Rid feels frustrated. He hoped that in the world of fantasy, magic would be a commonplace phenomenon, not a wonder for the weight of gold. Sandra confesses that even if she invented a spell to create a liter of water, it would not be possible to apply it. The lack of an attribute of water is quite annoying. In the end, she admits, a genus is a real miracle, because it can do what is not available to her. The genus recognizes it, but does not cease to be surprised. Why was such a master of monoconversion, like Sandra, was not forced to work in the capital? How would they be forced? He understands that her abilities exceed all his ideas. Sandra's smile confirms that at one time, she was chosen to manage a research laboratory in the capital. So her answer dispels the doubts. Right. Now it is clear why she, having such outstanding abilities, no one forced her to work in that place. This position had already belonged to her in the past. Sandra recalls how she was called to the capital because of her genius, but was later expelled because of envy. However, she is proud of her abilities. Rid is aware that Sandra was waiting for him from the very beginning. She confirms with a smile. She always believed that, developing her gift, the guy would even surprise himself. That is why she wanted to become a mentor. However, in the end, It is almost talking, calling it almost a subject. So Reld thinks of who he is really a student or tested. The guy agrees to hide his abilities, but grunts that Sandra could explain everything earlier. She responds with delight, convincing that society seeks to drive everyone into the framework. But truly bright personalities cannot be stopped. With a call in the eyes, they declare that they will break all the canons of common sense together. The genus believes that it is better to surrender the course of events, however. Sandra easily guesses the course of his thoughts, which is a little frightening him. After all the events, Genus and Sandra do not stop and continue to work on the recovery of the potion for the estate. Further, they have to test different ways of consuming lunar grass, raw, boiled, and dried. Despite the fact that this plant is extremely bitter and almost unsuitable for food, the genus still dare to taste it for its mother. Despite the terrible taste, Red collects all the willpower to carry out the experiment for her, firmly deciding to withstand the bitterness of the herbs. Without stopping for a moment, it boldly tastes each sample. But the facial expression clearly indicates the incredible complexity of this task. Despite its sharp taste, it continues tasting, writing observations about each method of using Araby. Rida with enthusiasm experiments with different variants of consumption of lunar herbs. Trying in raw form, he felt incredible bitterness, but nevertheless, the herbaceous taste provided a considerable influx of mana. It was not only unpleasant, but also turned out to be the worst possible way. In powder form, this substance, although it remained unpleasant in taste, was swallowing much easier and proved to be the most effective in test results. Sandra decides to test a new way of consumption of powder. It asks Rita to chew it and hold the taste in the mouth. The tart taste literally causes Rita to suffer, but Sandra, noticing his stability, sincerely congratulates the boy on his efforts. Despite the disgusting taste, Sandra concludes that the powder version is already safe and effective for practical use. Filled with determination, RID celebrates victory. Finally, Monopaton is complete. Sandra, with excitement, insists that he shares his impressions of the taste, and at that moment, her playful and lively nature reveals. The genus sees how much she liked the whole process, which immediately fills the atmosphere and adds a cheerful mood. Smiling, the genus is sincerely thanked by Sandri and assures that she will never forget her kindness. The conversation suddenly changes the direction when she mysteriously hints at another event and promises that he soon learns everything. Invites you to contact the Melody if interested in details. In the chest, Raya has an alarming suspicion. Something incomprehensible is mysterious on the approach. Returning home, Rid did not expect to meet his younger sister Mel, who was already waiting for him in the hallway. The passionate Reld rushes her to meet her without hiding joy. She meets him with a warm smile, exclaims, "No, Chan," and he heartily welcomes his brother. Their genuine joy and strong connection is noticeably enveloped by the atmosphere. A shining embrace is awaited, which will unite the loving brother and sister. The girl removes sharply, complaining about the sharp smell of him. The unexpected replica completely knocks the guy out of the panther. Soon, everyone around goes sideways. Rid, puzzled and embarrassed, realizes that he remained in the middle of the hall. One of the maids, trying to discharge tension, carefully points out that his smell is not so reflected. One of the servants in the estate, restraining laughter and trying to remain polite, noted that Rita's clothing stood too sharply, and delicately asked him to take a bath. The discontinuous Reld is curved in a forced smile, trying not to give out true emotions. Inside, he burns from indignation. He prevents the name of Sandra mentally, accusing it of it, because it is because of it that such humiliation must be tolerated. Red is surprised to watch the night shadows perform synchronous stretch marks. The idea of calisthenics, which he suggested, has already moved to the knights thanks to Rubens, and is gaining popularity. Although Rita this spectacle seems a little weird, he understands that these exercises not only protect against injuries, but also, as the commander explained, helps to hone the coordinated work in the team. Rubens, known among knights as a young talent, is not inferior to Rita in the speed of reaction. During his training with him, Rid noticed how Rubens realized the importance of warm-up before hard exercises. This is what prompted Rubens to introduce and promote calisthenics. However, Rid could not imagine that this practice would gain such popularity. During training, the genus is distracted, which leads to its fall. Rubens strictly warns, in a real fight, such a mistake would cost life. He then notes that the knights are responsible for cleaning the dungeons as soon as they arise. Hearing this, the genus is overflowing with delight. he opens a whole new world of training in the dungeons. Intrigued, the guy hardly asks to tell more about this difficult and exciting business. Rubens tells that there are dangerous dungeons in Takarel, where they go to collect rare materials, training, or battles with secret leaders. The dungeons are born as living beings, when their deep nuclei have absorbed incredible mana flows over the years. As soon as the core is overflowing, the entrance appears, and the maze begins to rage monsters and treasures. Land animals, fascinated by irreplication, gets into the trap, becoming a monster. So the dungeons not only survive, it thrives, saturated with life. The genus reveals an important truth for itself. If you leave the dungeon intact for too long, the monsters that gather inside will break freedom and bring chaos and destruction. That is why the knightly orders and guilds of adventurers exist in order to clean these dangerous places. In the heart of the dungeon, at its deepest level, the hidden core is the main source of its strength. To finally stop the dungeon, you need to destroy this core, and it is extremely risky. Any mistake threatens the collapse of the entire structure. Even the damaged core can hide, gradually recovering the strength and typing the menu for the revival of the dungeon. The UID draws a parallel between the system and the ant colon. The nuclei here are like a queen, and the monster acts as hard workers. The interested person asks who these are the multi-directional adventurers. Rubens replies that adventurers are universals capable of doing any business. Guilds come in two types, state and private. In the Empire, Magnolia operates the State Guild, which accepts orders from the whole region. In Baldi, the Order of the Knight is engaged in the fight against monsters and the study of the dungeons, so the Guild of Adventure has focused on the tasks of collecting rare materials. The more difficult the order is, the more solid the reward. Such life is calmer and perfect for those who look for easier adventures. Rubens points out that this is a long tradition, and the genus enthusiastically learns that he will receive his own card for the entry. The genus expresses the desire to become an adventure seeker once, and Rubens with passion promises to improve his skills in having a sword to perfection. However, suddenly Rubens voices his opinion. First of all, the genus must marry Diana. The embarrassment immediately affected the face of Reed. Such a statement stunned him and left in full misunderstanding. The abominable Rubens tries to translate the conversation away from Diana. However, Reed persistently pushes him, noticing Rubens's sincere sympathy for the girl. Finally, the guy confesses that Diana wakes up with him every morning and once said that he would definitely marry, having hinted that he would always be there. The heart is striking Rita. For him, it is an obvious proof that Diana is not indifferent to Rubens. But doubts do not retreat. In the hope of reducing the conversation, Rubens begins to complain. They say it is always difficult for him to wake up at dawn. Rubens constantly convinces himself that Diana does not feel anything about him. He has mentioned how she always insists during cooking. It is only a workout before the future marriage. In addition, when talking to her parents about marriage, Diana clearly made it clear. Rubens is only a friend for her, and there can be no relationship between them. Summarizing all this, Rubens is firmly convinced that he has no chance that Diana pleases his feelings. Everyone is watching R-eyed, who is silent without finding words. The confusion and growing irritation make him consider this conversation absurd, and in the soul there is a pity to Diana. The news of special memories of Diana and Rubens, as well as the promise he gave to her as a child, causes a wave of indignation in Rita. With determination in his eyes, he points to Rubens and demands that Diana finally openly confess to his feelings, emphasizing that it is simply impossible to postpone it. Without holding back emotions, Reed calls Rubens a coward because of his inability to show true courage and to say such an important confession, declares that it is the knight who has to know Diana better than others. Rubens, annoyed, grunts why he should obey, but after Rita's words, he thinks, "Is it not time to think about the true meaning of Diana said?" Sinking into her own thoughts, she first thinks about true feelings. Meanwhile, Reed understands that the moment has come to push Rubens to decisive action. Make sure that the interlocutor finally came, Reed reassures. Everything will be fine with him. A smile invisibly appears on his face when he remembers that funny situation, leaving a secret with him. Mel, noticing this, is interested in the cause of his joy, and Diana watches with them with surprise, not understanding anything. Rubens leads Diana to the place where they died together as a child. The girl is wrapped in warm nostalgia, Careless years come to life in memory. But she is wondering what a friend wanted to tell her. Rubens is noticeably worried, losing confidence in words. Finally gaining courage, he sincerely turns to her in his name, trying to gather all his efforts to confess his feelings. According to Rid, Rubens eventually dared to confess his feelings and began to meet with Diana. Watching this scene from afar, he smiled happy, mentally noting that the two could immediately go to the altar. So perfect they approach each other. Morning begins for Reed with a calm sleep, and suddenly his alarm awakens Mel. Cheerfully bouncing and being on his chest, she exclaims joyfully. He wakes up rapidly, trying to say hello, not yet fully realizing what is happening. And she, pouring everything around laughing, wants a good morning, frankly enjoying this funny scene. The genus jokes, they say, no matter how he tried to wake up earlier, Mel always ahead of him and wakes up himself. And in this, he is always noticeable. But only he tries to stop this ritual, the girl is immediately offended. After having breakfast, Mel returns to her room where she sinks to study. She mastered reading, Honnet's manners, and improves dance steps, continuing her in-depth training. Awareness comes to Rid. Despite her young age, she just wants to spend the morning next to him. It is a simple but extremely valuable moment for her. Solemnly meeting his father and Chris on the threshold of the estate, the genus does not hide joy. Even the morning attacks of Mel cause him only a friendly smile, but he instantly feels something has changed in the usual regulation. Chris appears in front of the genus. Noticeably confused, she tries to smile, and confesses that she has made every effort to withstand a certain test. The expression of her face clearly shows that she has experienced a lot of trials lately. Meanwhile, Rid is anxiety watching Chris barely holding on her feet. The father tells that she really appealed to the Empress. So much that the whole journey spoke with her about public affairs, not even allowing you to rest. Chris confesses that she is only tired from the road to the capital. My father thanks her for the effort and asks everyone to allow her to relax in the guest room. He later calls Rita for a serious conversation to his office. Inside, the father, looking at the son, only then begins the conversation. Directly asks how his son could change so dramatically in such a short time without hiding either astonishment or perhaps even distrust. Raid is confused. The meaning of the question slips away from it. Meanwhile, the father watches his son closely, noticing something unusual in his behavior. He admits that he has repeatedly tested the guy with tricky questions and pressure, but the cold-bloodedness of Rita is the most striking. Such a mature reaction is not inherent in the child. Now a man asks, how did his son be so difficult, such as the victim for the imperial couple without having a single book or instructions at hand? The mystery sounds. The realization that the father will not be deceived for a long time pushes Rita to a frank conversation. Under pressure from annoying questions, he understands that every word should be weighed too carefully. In his head, there is an idea to tell you how to faint in the garden. He returned memories of his past life. The intertwining of these memories with their own experiences, Rid gave rise to a new personality. An amazing combination of who he was once and who became now. The essence of the past remains with him, but now his heart is filled with emotions and memory of the current Arid. The genus confesses that he is still tormented by the guilt because of the cold, with which he at one time treated his younger sister and maid, even before his recollection returned. Now the guy feels sincere admiration for them and seeks to become a stronger person. He notes with understanding that the changes not only touch the thoughts, but also the heart, opening a sincere desire to become better. He allowed him to see his true intentions. Full of curiosity, a fair-haired guy slowly approaches the massive door in the silent wing of the castle, guessing that perhaps the one he is looking for is now resting. Carefully knocks on the door and quietly asks if there is Chris. Without waiting for the answer, he slowly turns the latch and gently goes inside. The vigilant and wary look attracts the surrounding space, carefully moving deeper into the room. The face of sincere curiosity appears on the face when the Chris is calling for the second time. His steps are light and almost silent, as if trying to merge with silence. As soon as the threshold is crossed, the main character seizes Crick in the arms of a deep sleep. Make sure she is really sleeping. He looks carefully at her calm face. Noticing how tired she looks in her features in surprise, without saying a word, fascinated by admiring her beauty. Chris moves unconsciously in bed, quietly pronouncing something in a dream. The guy is in no hurry to break the silence. Calmly and with easy interest she watches her. Watching Chris sleeps, the protagonist suddenly jumps out of surprise. The girl moves and disorderly, incomprehensible words. Her dream is anxious. With care in her voice she calls someone. The young man's heart suddenly accelerates the course. He thinks that she dreams? Catching the meaning of her semi-whisper, he hesitates. Discomfort increases inside, and the guy begins to think whether he should continue to listen to her delusions. The protagonist tries to slip out of the room with a jacket, and suddenly notices. The door is not exposed. Surprise covers him. Maybe someone deliberately retains it on the other side. The sudden creaking of the door breaks the silence. A girl with a harsh look appears. The guy, noticing her, freezes for a moment, but is even more surprised, recognizing not a girl, but a guy who carelessly reproaches him for his occupation. Meanwhile, Chris gradually comes to her senses, feeling that something happens in the room. Meanwhile, behind the door, the hero is strongly trying to persuade Mel to open, explaining that he just wanted to make sure that everything was all right in Chris. Mel strictly reproaches. To go to the girl's room without permission is a bad tone. With a smile, the guy asks to open until Chris noticed. Mel mockingly, hesitantly, demonstratively thinking about whether he should be helped. It is even more concerned about the guy. He apologizes in a hurry, feeling anxious because of what happened. Recognizing, she wakes up and justified. She fell asleep from fatigue, does not even believe that she has allowed herself in this place. Meanwhile, the hero smiles with relief. I am glad that he has not been taught earlier, and tries to reassure him. It is not necessary to worry at all. Soon Chris begins to talk about the trip to the capital. Endless conversations with the Empress, an important meeting with Earl Rollin, as well as the game of others who hid the truth from her, all of which she recounts a careful listener. The guy, catching every word, confesses. His father did not tell anything about these events, and sincerely thanks Chris for his frankness. The next day after the audience, the Emperor commands the Count Roland to pay reparations for the image of Chris, not suspecting her noble foreign origin. This decision again puts the Count into an inconvenient position in front of the whole yard. But surprisingly, Chris refuses to accept compensation. Instead of the expected answer, she states that he has a request. The Emperor, interested in her further desires, allows you to speak frankly. Focus and decisively, Chris is preparing to reveal his true purpose. Under the walls of the court, Chris appeals to everyone with a direct request to stop believing rumors and spreading only proven facts. She emphasizes, gossip can tarnish the reputation of the Magnolia Empire in the eyes of the world. Her sharp and confident words stunned all those present, especially Roland, who did not hide astonishment. Chris summed up, urging everyone to perceive this case as a visual lesson and make the necessary conclusions for themselves. After Chris's words, one of the nobles recognizes a mistake, apologizes for everyone, because the subordinates did not receive the right guidelines. Chris, without losing determination, monitors the development of events. Later, in a more casual conversation, she thinks about her own behavior and acknowledges that she may have crossed the line by speaking with such a speech before all the nobility. The protagonist listens carefully, sympathizing with her, and understands how difficult it was for her. As a result, the story emphasizes that Chris was able to solve the problem, paying responsibility not only to Roland, but also to the entire aristocracy. Talking, the protagonist notes that Earl Rollin's allies are rapidly losing their influence after a recent event. Interested in further actions, he asks whether Chris intends to simply watch the next step of the Count. For a moment, he admires her quietly, calling Chris a true heroine. Smart and fearless, but immediately hides his words when she notices his reaction. Actually, keeping full rest, Chris carefully analyzes the situation. Roland is not just another graph. This man skillfully manages trade, concludes dubious agreements, and cleverly chooses favorable rights. She unambiguously states, it will become the main obstacle to expanding their business. The protagonist, passionate about her confidence and perseverance, realizes that he would not want such enemies, even the most stupid enemies. Overflowing with joy because of successful business negotiations, the protagonist expresses his sincere gratitude to Chris, emphasizing that her appearance, along with Christie's company and Baldea's possessions, became a real gift of fate. Unexpectedly for itself, Chris reacts angry, in surprise, feeling the wave of emotions. Reflecting on the past, she remembers how all her efforts remained in vain, no matter how much strength she has invested, and how she remained alien to others forever. The sly hopes changed the unexpected warmth. The words of the protagonist touched the heart. Although she answered restrained, calling such an honor unexpected, her sincere gratitude for this acquaintance and the value of this short but important moment next to him sprouted inside her. Reflecting on Chris and her team, the genus mentions the cheeky remark of Count Rollins, who grossly called her an old witch that left Suffron. In fact, Chris was born in a family where the right to take a family business had to move to her older brother. But later, her entrepreneurial hatch exceeded all expectations, even his brother's abilities. At first, she sought to stay in the shade, supporting it with the company's backstage. However, even the best intentions did not save from condemnation and gossip. It made her to take care of her own path and establish Christie. The comments were spreading, injection of tension, and Chris was increasingly afraid that through her family business could split. To prevent this, she decided to become independent. Not wanting to lure clients from their native business, Chris founded her own company in the Baldy, lands where Elfie Enterprises did not operate yet. Despite the extraordinary talent, the path in a foreign country was a real test. The movement went slowly, passed for many months without noticeable achievements or recognition. It was then that he appeared. While Chris fought for the development of her company, despite the rich talent, the protagonist suddenly emerged in her way. His confident look and a barely noticeable smile breathed a fresh life at a moment when it seemed that nothing would move out of place. In his reflections, Chris concludes that he alone is not enough to reach the desired. It is with its appearance that everything has changed. The heroine, immersed in memories, rethinks the path that Chris has overcome. It seems to her that fate rewarded a persistent girlfriend for all his efforts. Every day lived, even when the results were not visible, he was a step towards victory. In memory, it emerges as the butterflies mentioned the company Christie, solely because of the influence of what Chris affairs made in Baldy. Although he is silent, he sincerely hopes that his words will be able to change something. It is impossible to endure when it humiliates itself. Smiling kindly, the protagonist turns to Chris, assuring that everything she has achieved is her own merit. He encourages the girl, inspires to believe in his own strength. The words are stunning Chris. A genuine surprise and touch appear on her face. Emotions are overwhelmed, and she begs to stop timidly, not believing that she has expressed so many compliments. However, her face clearly says how important these words became to her. The protagonist's speeches move Chris to the heart. Memories of the tireless struggle, sleepless nights and many obstacles she overcame, devoted to her entire life. A sincere compliment almost brings her to tears. It seems that it was so longing for this recognition all this time. Humorously overflowing, Chris thanks, not hiding either a happy or excited smile, nor trembling tears of gratitude. Having restored self-control, Chris returns to a business in a business tone and details the terms of the agreement. During the first month, Mage will prioritize the product. Only after that stocks will appear in the market. Additional orders are no longer subject to special benefits, and the calculation is made in advance. The genus listens carefully and is interested in details about the priority rights for Magetta. Chris confidently assures that she arranged everything properly, and a satisfied smile involuntarily appears on her face. However, doubts do not leave him. Was such a generous promise premature? After all, the production of the analog has just started. However, he calms himself with thought. He will always be able to turn to his father for additional ingredients. Meanwhile, the work is rapidly moving forward. With frantic energy, the man announces the start of the collection of aloe. He has already used the selling channels of Christie and Suffron, signed agreements with farmers and even ordered wild aloe through foreign guilds. All these actions took place even to the rise in prices in the market. The protagonist impresses such speed, but he also recognizes the moment was chosen perfectly. The sophisticated lady notes that they now expect a lot of work, performing the orders of Her Majesty. At the same time, it is jokingly reminded of Chris not to forget about it. After all, it is the face of the company, and it also needs quality products. During the conversation, the genus is unexpectedly admired by the appearance of Chris, emphasizing that such beauties as she is almost not found, and anyone would dream of seeing it with their representative. These words are stunned by Chris. She does not find words from shame and sharply replies, reproaching that he should be more careful about expressions. The confused, Reld tries to keep caution, but still insists. She is extremely beautiful, and this remedy only emphasizes her charm, so there is no doubt. Everyone will be delighted with her. Sincere praise. Chris tries to quickly change the topic. Red is beetroot. While the conversation is ongoing, the company selects names for future goods. Christie's Body Cream and Christie Emma Air Conditioning. Upon learning that the names were chosen in their honor, Chris is embarrassed, and Emma is pleasantly surprised. Friends discuss how you can expand the range. Even without olives, air conditioning is easy to prepare on the basis of essential oils, and the body cream is not necessary to leave in a single version. Components and smell can be safely changed. Inspiration covers Chris, and ideas for a number of new products are already born in her imagination. In conclusion, she reports that he will now be able to negotiate directly with the Empress himself, and if the Rain needs help, he will be able to contact her. The young man perceives this proposal calmly and agrees with her. But it was only necessary to hear the name of Empress Matilda, as Chris Panksa enveloped a wave of memories of this majestic and strict woman whose authority could not be questioned. Meanwhile, Rid, enthusiastically watching the conversation, plunged into his own reflections on the mysterious owner. However, Rid only shrugged, without understanding the unexpected anxiety of Chris. With an ironic smile he threw, "It is better to stay away from those who are able to catch the horror of even in a dream," hinting at the Empress. After these words, his own opinion laughed because it really seems frightening. The moment of tense silence breaks the room when Chris, suspiciously raising his eyebrows, for the first time says, "Where do you know that she is moaning in her sleep?" The genius fades instantly, realizing that he has been talking, and in vain tries to smooth his negligence. But the situation is no longer saved. On hot cot, Retta unexpectedly meets the icy look of Chris. The realization that he followed her at the most vulnerable moment forces the girl to literally flash out indignation. It explodes with a frantic rage, screams, calling him a scoundrel for a woman's peeking to a woman until he slept. Her cheeks are buried with shame and anger, and with each word, a thunderstorm. It is ready to cover the guy with a flurry of emotions. The embarrassed family hurriedly invents the excuse, assuring that he only wanted to tease a little, and the rest, pure accident. Meanwhile, a maid with a new portion of tea enters the room, and then the Mel appears, firmly pressing your favorite toy. The confused Ride pleadingly asks Mel to explain that he had no evil intention when he found her in a dream. However, Mel looks at him silently, in no hurry to answer. Chris, still annoyed, feverish, but the maid holds him down. Mel, without any hesitation and calm, unmoved tone, refuses Rita, immediately stating, this was not a chance. For a long time, his gaze did not break away from Chris until she was in the power of sleep. Upon learning of this, Rid sinks into despair. He wanders frantically, calls Mel, praying at least about a crumb of support. That moment has already been lost. The situation changes rapidly. The depressing silence is over. The drop of water cut through the darkness, heralding the beginning of the inevitable punishment. In the darkness of the room, the woman wakes up rapidly, eagerly catching the air. Her heart is frantic with anxiety, her mind enveloped in chaos. She wants to focus, but panic does not allow her to master the technique known to her, to feel the so-called drop of water. Breathing hard, she clamps her mouth and sees bloody spots with horror on her palm, an alarming sign of a serious illness. But even in the face of pain, the girl squeezes his fists and swears firmly. He will never retreat, whatever happens. Starting on the bed, with her hands pressed to the breast, and a look, full of determination, a woman makes a promise. Despite the exhaustion, she firmly states that she will certainly be full of height. Without hiding tears, she turns to everyone around. On her own, she will get back on her feet again, no matter how long it takes, and that there would be no suffering. Well mounted and still suffocated after the shock, the woman tries to restore her breathing while lying in bed. Between the cough and the heavy breaths, it gradually quenches itself, whispering mentally that today it is enough. A barely audible knock on the door and a tired smile on her face. She allows you to enter, saying that she has already opened. The scene changes, leisurely steps, and someone gently crosses the threshold, slowly entering the room. After a polite knock, 3 guests come to the room. A woman lying in bed meets them, a barely noticeable smile. Although the forces have not yet returned, she politely apologizes for her appearance. She seems to be a friendly smile. Marquis Rayner's wife, Nunal Baldia. One of the guests corresponds to the same warm smile, and the atmosphere of sincere friendliness prevails in the room. Among the guests is a woman who calls herself Sandra Ernest, a magic researcher. Her son is amazed. He did not even suspect that his mother was able to behave so skillfully and sophisticated in society. The man sitting by the bed slowly returns to a sick woman, Nunal. His voice is full of seriousness. He admits that he had lacked courage earlier, and finally gaining determination, confessed. He still hid the truth about her ailment from her. A strict expression appears on the face of a man. And finally he opens the nation all the truth. The ailment she had to face is called monkey. He further tells that this condition is incurable and fatal. Hard words are hung in the air as Nanelli listens silently, boldly accepting the harsh truth with her. Determination. Hearing the unexpected confession, the man is surprising. He asks who opened the truth. However, she calmly assures that she was still aware of everything. The girl quietly explains that he knows her body better than anyone. Not even hearing the name of the disease, she already guessed. It is something incurable. A calm smile illuminates her face when she asks him to keep anyone evil. No confessions were made. She just felt it with her heart. Nonelli calmly accepts a terrible diagnosis that has a monkey. Despite the seriousness and incurability of the disease, the woman confesses that she has become easier than the truth is finally revealed. Rid is silently watching her, and tears approach her eyes, because in a moment the test he sees the mother's true indomitability. With a slight smile, she jokes that she is probably a completely unsuccessful mother if she made her own son worry. After that, he addresses Rita with apologies, recognizing how difficult the test was for him. With determination in the voice, the genius answers the words of the mother. She is not a failed mother at all, and if someone let down, it was a father. In memory, the moment when the father himself confessed in his mistakes, this mention is overwhelmed by Reed. The efforts of Sandra to take the situation under control are accompanied by the words that such things are not discussed here, but she still agrees. The Ray father really distinguishes excessive harshness, including his relatives. Meanwhile, while others are arguing, the Nail with a warm smile jokes with his son, easily inciting him to call Mel simply Mel, without worrying about her remarks. The tension gradually melted, turning the scene into a real family idyll. Rid explodes with despair, rushing his father in the face of the question, whether he once thought about how lonely and powerless he felt her mother all these years. Meanwhile, the father silently plunges into his own thoughts. The feeling of guilt squeezes the soul. Hiding behind work, he tried to escape from reality. The signs of the disease were noticeable for a long time, but there was a lack of courage to look truth. And all this time she worn out everything. None of these men never kneel before her, recognizing a huge mistake. She just smiled gently and assured that she did not want to be a burden. However, Araya assured her, "You should not worry at all." In the impulse of feelings, the hero confesses to her in love. Nunali, looking at him with tenderness, frankly answers, her heart also belongs to him. At the sincere moment of reconciliation and tenderness, the words unite the couple. After a wave of emotions, Sandra restores attention to a real situation. With confidence, it approaches and extends a non-Ellie bottle with potions, explaining, although it is not a medicine, the drink will help a little relief of symptoms of monodeficiency. It advises to dilute the potion with water, because its taste is quite sharp. Neely, despite cough attacks, decisively accepts the potion, and is surprised to monitor her initiative. Swallowing the potion, Zero twists from acute pain. She groans and begins to suffocate. The frightened Ridad rushes to her without turning her gaze, and the mother calls alarmed. The hoarse, unstable breathing of Germany only emphasizes the criticality of the moment. Focused and alarmed, he immediately orders, "It is necessary to urgently measure the Germans." An unknown evil hangs over her, and he is aware, should be acting immediately. The stunned Rid unexpectedly finds that the mother's stock in the mother has almost been exhausted. There is only 8 left. Embed with despair, he hotly urges Sandra to rush with medicines. Sandra is stunned by the dramatic events and instantly goes to actions. Barely breathing, Nanelli fights for every breath, and Sandra runs up with a new portion of medicines, reaches out his hand and persistently tells them immediately. Nanelli is choked by air and almost loses consciousness. The forces of treacherously leave it. Sandra Harry is hotly asking her to open her mouth to take the medicine. Despair pierces every corner of the room. The genius, watching everything with a compressed heart and tears in the eyes, exclaims to the mother every time, crying out of last forces. He pray her not to give up. Every second stretches eternity until everyone is fighting for her life. Having exhausted the last forces, Nanelli calls for help before fainting. He plunges into despair, shouting through tears and calling his mother in the whole voice. The boy is covered by pain and horror. He rushes to her, stubbornly refusing to accept the worst. In the decisive moment, an unexpected occurred. A dazzling light broke out around, forcing everyone to die with surprise. Rainer in despair firmly presses the unconscious body of Nunali, hugging it with all the remaining force. At that moment, memory returns him to the past, where the meeting with Nanali was also remembered as Arsvin's assistant. At one time, he only dreamed of a brilliant career in the capital, not even knowing how dramatically it would turn his fate. Arvin appears hidden, hiding his face under the wig, and is preparing to go through the city secretly. Rainer, without hiding skepticism, doubts the feasibility of such a check. But Arvin insists. There are two important reasons for this: to check how things are going in the city and finding a gift for his wife. He goes with such intentions. Rainer is in surprise to think about the last explanation, and Arvin keeps calm, noting that he has a good reason for this. Arvin explains that he does not want to translate the choice of a gift to someone else, because a personal approach gives this gesture a special weight. He even adds, Rainer will ever understand it, when his time to marry. Soon, Arvin shares a true anxiety. His father's health has shaken, so there can be no question of returning to public affairs. Most likely, in a few years the royal crown will have to accept him. Time for such short escapes will become more limited. For Rainer, this proved to be unexpected and stunning. Awareness of the seriousness of the situation came suddenly. Arvin with a gentle smile announces that he first seeks to record in his soul what he should protect. In such symbolic words, it makes it clear that he wants to make a memory and appreciate the most important thing before going to the throne. He thanks Rainer for his company to take his company while walking in the city, demonstrating how she values even simple moments next to his friend. Rainer is trying to apologize, but Arvin assures that everything is fine. He must resolve this issue on his own. Arvin seeks to leave, and the Rainer not only allows, but also warns not to be tired. Meanwhile, a sharp cry is heard in the room. Someone is called to stop, and the other person is restrained by the guard. Rainer retains unmoved peace and immediately gives a few short orders. Dina's security guard is tasked with keeping Arun, while angry prisoner requires freedom. In a narrow lane, a woman suddenly causes an arrogant stranger, causing her genuine surprise. He firmly grabs her for his wrist, laughs and insists the conversation that they have not had time to complete should continue right now. The woman explodes with indignation, sharply reminding she has officially refused him, and to speak with such a smug and self-righteous type. Surrounded by a crowd of men with evaporative smiles, headed by the same thing that has already clung to her earlier, the woman suddenly fades with fear. Her eyes expand in a panic, and the body is unconsciously trying to move as far away from the danger. A man squeezes her face, despite the pleas for help. Declaring that a car that will take them soon will come, he cold promises to make her survive the same shame that he once felt, finding pleasure in her frightened look. Massing the voice of a woman with his hand, the attacker seems to be intimate and calls her his beloved. However, the man approaches and asks what is happening. Turning directly to the woman and calling her ladies, he invites her to tell the truth, opening a chance to break out of the trap. Finally, the woman breaks down. Her voice is heard throughout the room. She calls loudly for help and rejects lies with indignation. None of the present is her lover. Despite the rude grip, the determination does not leave her, and she courageously exposes falsehood and violence. Meanwhile, a man in glasses that came earlier is aware of the seriousness of events. Full of confidence and determination, he solemnly promises to do everything possible to save a woman. Hearing her sincere request for help, she responds short. How do you want? Immediately preparing to act. A tall man with long hair and a confident look strongly puts a point in a dispute. He says that he has no more words, and strictly orders the attacker to get out. He, beaten and humiliated, tries to get back on his feet, lifting his head, so as not to lose the remains of honor. He shouts loudly. His name Logus from the Galliano family, and this story will not end so. Runs away, remaining unnoticed. A woman who has just saved her life explodes with tears from relief and expressed her sincere gratitude. She did not hope that someone would come to the rescue, even if she was screaming. Rainer is wondering if she was injured. He expresses his admiration with her courage, because she lasted until the end. A chunky bald man is rapidly bursting into the room, shouting the name of Rainer and worrying about her well-being. Behind, in the shade, someone with visible relief is watching events. The woman looks carefully as Rainer talks to his comrades, and a warm, sincere smile appears on her face. She thinks what a wonderful person is. Meanwhile, Rainer in a joking manner asks Dinas not to shout his name so loudly. The woman also turns to him with respect, calling the Rainer Sama, and is even more fond of his kindness and caring character. A few months have passed. The unexpected news is stunning the protagonist. He was offered to marry, which he did not suspect this moment. Matilda himself and his own parents were the initiators of this union. Despite some suspicion, he views the document and convinces the handwriting is truly parental. Another young man soon appears, showing a letter of confirmation. Everything is quite official. The hero learns that his bride is married by agreement, the legendary Red Lady, Non-Illyrinos. Her glory goes far because everyone admires her beauty, and at the same time she became famous for rejecting every offer of hand and heart. Despite this, the guy confesses, personally, he did not have to meet. Against the background, a majestic mansion appears. It is here that the events of the long-awaited meeting will soon unfold. At first glance, the protagonist realizes that he faces exactly the girl with whom he was brought by his fate for a long time. Not believing his own eyes, he is surprised by this unexpected meeting. Looking more closely at her features, he realizes that the beauty of the girl even exceeds memories. Nona, with a slight smile, gently replies, adding that she did not hope to meet him again. During an official conversation, the hero tries to pay tribute to the Nail, noting that she fully corresponds to his title of Bagrian Lady. However, the surprised girl will ask what he meant. Realizing what the confusion came about, the guy hurriedly explained. His words concerned her beautiful flame hair, and he just wanted to emphasize, before him, an extremely charming woman. The unexpected compliment causes the nation to be surprised to hold the breath, and its cheeks lightly covers the blush. Having discouraged, it is sharply raised and begins to be justified feverishly. He tells how she once rejected the courtship of another man, and in response he had rumored that her refusal was a reaction to a sharp criticism on her part. Since then, the rumors have crawled among people, and everyone began to call it a purple lady. The protagonist only surprises his eyebrows, because even he had no idea about that nickname. She, blushing and hiding her hands, markedly embarrassed from this story. Feeling that the nickname Red Lady was pronounced with admiration, not for mockery, the knaves are sincerely moved. A joyful smile, a warm gesture, which she finally perceives as a sign of sincerity, blooms on her face. The protagonist confesses that she is under her magic, sincerely demonstrating his admiration. The tension is instantly dispelled between them, and the warm, casual atmosphere reigns around. The protagonist openly expresses the desire to go with him to the lands of Baldia, the property owned by his wife. Hearing this request, her face illuminated a charming smile, and without hesitation he agrees, assuring that she will be pleased if he really wants it. It is this moment that marks the official beginning of their relationship. When Nanili swallows the medicine, the tension around increases. Everyone has kept a breath in anticipation. With inspiration in the voice, the hero requires immediately to measure mono, in anticipation of change for the better. The researcher, holding his breath, watches carefully, believing in the effectiveness of medication. Meanwhile, the guy closes his eyes and fervently, almost silently asks for fate. Let her mono respond this time. Measurement gives an unexpected result. Now there are as many as 101 man in Nunella. The present are stunned by what they see, and then they explode with joyful emotions and celebrations. The relief covers the main character when it becomes clear that the medicine was given. The timid movement. The woman finally comes to her senses, barely smiles, and barely audible, calls her husband. The next moment, the boy, without holding back tears, rushes to her and presses, joyfully whispering, "Mom." Finally, with relief on the face, Nonal reports that it feels much better. The protagonist does not hold back the tears of joy. From all over the voice he exclaims her name. He is embroidered with emotions. He rushes to his mother, which he saw so long in suffering, and now finally meets her smiling and healthy. After an unexpected attack, the doctor was urgently called to see the mother of the protagonist. Gathering together, all those present came to start continuous treatment with mana potion, appointing a 3-time reception per day. In addition, the room was on duty around the clock, ready to respond promptly to any emergency. Impressive recovery. Only 1 dose returned as many as 100 units. Meanwhile, the main character, overflowing with emotions, attributes his improvement of tireless care and the support of Reiner Sam. Renner's terrific observation did not wait. He immediately realized that a woman would no longer be able to take medicine on her own. Without hesitation for a minute, he chewed the potion, mixed it with water in his mouth, and passed it directly from his mouth. The protagonist did not look at his father. Such a determination and the speed of action seemed incredible to him. In the meantime, he tries to support the conversation with Sandra, carefully interested in why she does not have dinner with her family. With a sly smile, the main character invites everyone to leave the room, giving lovers the opportunity to be alone. Reiner stands at the Nane bed, which, withdrawing and delaying emotions, does not look. Meanwhile, against the background of Sandra, along with the hero, they are quietly moving, delicately leaving the couple alone. That night, in the palace, the advisors were vividly discussed a letter that discussed a marriage offer. There is doubt about the feasibility of accepting a letter without comments. It seems a manifestation of disrespect. Nevertheless, the Empire honestly executes the agreement, sending a representative of the same high condition. One of the advisors notes that the visit of the son of a marquis is now not accidental. Meeting with someone almost a peer of the princess is hardly accidental. Such events usually lies a political calculation. The king agrees to the visit of the marquise, reminding everyone that it was the kingdom who asked to find the bride, so they have no right to reject the candidate. However, he notes that in the event of any problems with the tent, circumstances can change dramatically. Meanwhile, one of the advisors silently watches the events. His view is full of suspicion or anxiety. Although the king allows a visit, there is still doubt about whether the son of the marquis is worthy of a princess. Meanwhile, among those present, someone with a shrewd and vicious look is already beginning to weave their own insidious intrigues. A cunning smile gives a hidden conspiracy. He is already set to act at his discretion to check or even disrupt the idea of a young guest. The protagonist, a young man with golden hair, steps next to a refined older woman. She jokingly picks up his previous replica, laughing at how he advised to leave lovers alone. But, looking carefully at the guy, he notices that something in him does not meet his young appearance, as if the young only had a body. Her words are caught by the hero by surprise. He laughs nervously, hastily denying such suspicions. After that, the woman suddenly changes the topic. She shares the idea to invent a completely new form of magic and proposes to create it together. At this moment, the atmosphere becomes especially important to it. In the palms, it carefully holds the mysterious object, and it is visible in its expression. It will be about something really serious. The amazed guy fades, covered with surprise and curiosity. Meanwhile, the protagonist leads the woman to the mysterious door. Sincerely smiling, he invites it inside. The magic key easily returns to the castle, opening the unexplored space. He confesses that a new spell that seeks to create with it concerns memory. Magical communication with memories. The woman follows, intrigued, and light on the other side illuminates their way forward. Stripping a brightly lit corridor, the protagonist recalls the theory that he faced in his previous life. The brain never forgets anything. There is nothing to worry about. Keeping memories only in the subconscious, he thinks about his reincarnation and realizes that he has preserved the memory of his past life. This is prompted. Perhaps the brain is connected not only with the body but also with the soul itself. Thinking, he draws a parallel with magic and imagines a spell that can touch the memories of the soul. By his eyes, he voices his idea and asks if there are such magic. The woman recalls that the idea voiced by the protagonist gives her memories of an ancient scientific theory from this world, the one that was called the divine path of life magic. The intrigued guy immediately begins to ask about it in more detail. She tells about little-known philosophy, which is collected from the basic ideas of ancient teaching. Only the chosen path open. Awareness erupts in the main character's thoughts. The vitality from which the man arises rules the invisible path to the gods. Thinking about this, the hero begins to associate a new philosophy with his own ideas, realizing that these ideas can be the key to the magic of memory he seeks to create. The hero voices a bold idea: to try not one of the typical transformations of mana, but its complete opposite is a risky way, but a new one. Hearing this, the woman does not hide the surprise, recognizing honestly, to imagine the consequences of such an act cannot be able to do. However, without holding back anxiety, she still advises not to bend the stick. In response, the guy silently puts his hand on his chest, once again feeling something deep, and understands. He touches the boundaries of the soul. Perhaps this is what its essence lies. Taking a magical experiment, the hero accepted a meditative pose. At first, following the established technique, it squeezes vital energy to create Manhwa. Then he tries to direct this stream deeper into his own body, without releasing a woman who watches closely at his every step. Feeling inspiration, he decides to take the risk and look even further. By concentrating energy in itself, even if it does not produce instantly, it thinks, is it possible to return Manu to vitality? If so, then maybe where the shelter has the soul, and this newborn vital energy will expect. During meditation, the protagonist feels something strange. Manu seems to be an invisible hand somewhere in the unknown. Interest is mixed with anxiety when a flow of energy appears before the eyes, which is rapidly drawn into a mysterious fault, which suddenly emerged just before it. Absolutely unusual and unexpected event. The hero's vigilance is exacerbated. This appearance promises danger. The anticipation suggests that something is wrong here, and the consequences can be fatal. Waking up, the main character finds himself in a mysterious place. Looking around, he notices in amazement that he is surrounded by the books in the air, an endless library that extends to the horizon itself. Having delved into contemplation of the outside world, it suddenly catches a familiar call. Recovering from surprise, looks around. A mysterious figure walks towards. Before the eyes of the protagonist emerges a figure, strikingly similar to him. Puzzled, he asks who this stranger is, because he sees his own reflection. A quiet smile appears on the boy's face, and he calls himself the embodiment of memories. According to him, it becomes clear. This place is created to restore paintings of past life. In the role of the name, he proposes the word memory. This is the best way to define it. Twisted, but not seeing another way out, the protagonist decides to meet the stranger, because he understands that he will have to take this game to move on. Protagonist with passion seeks to restore lost memories, comparing this process with finding information on the internet. The essence of memory is that the task is complicated, but it is possible. It is only necessary to turn to it. He argues that he is able to find any information about this world, and from that moment the hero can cause him at will. However, he later warns that ordinary people are forbidden here. However, the protagonist managed to penetrate this space in a special way. The affected guy is wondering how he can call him again in the future. The memory replies that it is enough to use a mana, because the hero is great. However, before allowing it, it is closer and warns. There is one important condition to be voiced. The essence of memory warns the main character. Despite the fact that it was unexpectedly simple, this place is incredibly fragile. After all, they are in the very heart of his soul. The essence advises never to return here alone. It is too dangerous. Smiling, he solemnly promises to come to the rescue at the first call. The protagonist thanks for the support, and friends exchange a warm gesture for a sign of goodbye. At the same time, the memory disappears gently, leaving behind a bright trace of light and simple, sincere, come. The woman silently watches the events, and suddenly her eyes are expanding. Something unusual attracts attention. And cured, she sounds the main character, excitedly asking if everything is fine with him. Sudden awakening breaks out a boy from a dream. In a confusion, he has no idea where he found himself. As he picks up, he looks at the unexpected company. Both, frightened by surprise, explode with shouts, and immediately plunge into panic. The confusion and the funny harmony cover the room as they try to understand what happened. After the frightened fright, the woman turned to the main character, calling him Sandro, and wondered what happened to him. He tried to behave as usual, but she advised not to hide her feelings, because his silence worked. That is why she decided to visit. But the unexpected cry of Sandro was genuinely surprised by her. Noting that he has been unconscious for a long time, he is interested in his well-being. A little discord, the guy thanks her and shyly apologizes for making him worry. Listening to his own doubts, the protagonist hesitates to open the Sandry truth or not. In the end, he dares to lie. He throws away that he was defeated, as if nothing significant had happened. Sandra only sighs with understanding. They say that the attempt did not guarantee success. Meanwhile, in his mind, anxious thoughts about the words of memory emerge. That place in the depths of the soul was dangerous. One wrong step, and he could stay there forever. However, these fears remain only by his secret. Returning to the room, the main character quietly turns to the memory, just to check if he will respond. Surprisingly, the voice is immediately called in his mind, proving that the connection works even from a long distance. Without hiding surprise, the hero is convinced. This way really works. Meanwhile, memory welcomes him carelessly, adding that I am glad to see him whole and unharmed. The protagonist confesses that he actually only wanted to check the opportunity, not having serious questions. The attempt was successful. Now he can turn to his memories at any moment. At the majestic farewell building, it is of particular importance. The main character assures that he is always ready to come to the rescue. You should only call. Soon, with a radiant smile, he goes to one of the wards, wondering how his mother feels. Sandra, who carefully oversees the woman nearby, with confidence replies, "Everything is in order." The medication is selected very carefully. The boy's mother thanks her, noting that he has improved significantly thanks to the treatment of his well-being. The main character's look is delayed on the mother who talks to Sandra. In his thoughts, an unbreakable desire to find medicine not only for the sake of saving the most expensive person, but also for all who suffer from this ailment. Memories return him to the terrible moment when her mother almost took death, and since then Sandra became a personal doctor for her. As a magic researcher who specializes in life energy and mani, it was the best prepared to combat an insidious disease. Meanwhile, Sandra catches his gaze and is suspicious of whether he is spinning in his head. Confused, he has a hurry, trying to hide an ironic smile about her seeming innocence. The mother looks closely at the thoughtful son and is wondering whether everything is fine, noticing his tension. He emerges from his thoughts and assures he just thought. The woman gently reminds you not to cut beyond the extent. He soon recalls his meeting with Rayler Sam. The hero suddenly realizes that time has come and confirms that he was really called. Before the guy goes, the mother smiles and asks to convey the greetings to the district, and he lives and says goodbye, full of enthusiasm. A strict man announces that the protagonist's visit to the Renorut is finally approved. The news instantly makes a deep impression on the guy. His eyes expand from surprise and a dead anticipation. A real storm rises in the soul. He feels that he finally waited for the hours he had dreamed of. Finally, the protagonist confesses that the true purpose of his trip to Renorut was the desire to find a cure for his mother's ailment. However, on the way to the creation of mono elixir, there was a serious obstacle, one of the key components, the moonlight grass, not available for public. It is impossible to grow it, and the only known stock is under the close control of the company owned by Chris. Because of this, the guy cannot publish the elixir. Memories of the past tell him that Renorut is a country with developed agrarian technologies. It is there that the young man believes that you can find information or means to ensure a stable supply of this grass, which will eventually allow you to move the case from a dead point. Hearing about the possible ideas of Renorut, the main character is immediately alert. He is informed that King Elias makes efforts to preserve friendly relationships. Some subordinates oppose the planned marriage. He is concerned about the probability that dissatisfied vassals will try to force him to give up the union. The awareness came suddenly. If he is deprived of the right to get the princess, this honorable niche will be occupied by someone from royal blood. Even realizing that some vassals just seek to regain the balance between the kingdoms, he sees perfectly. In certain circumstances, such a struggle can easily turn into a dangerous game if they are too far. Finding himself in a hurry, the protagonist is interested in his father, where he knows such details about internal strife in Renard. The father answers without hesitation, emphasizing, "No country has a holistic will, and surrogate knowledge will help anyone who seeks to defend their own lands." Carefully catching an important detail, the guy concludes that the father should have his own source of information, and he is not mistaken. The man confirms the assumption and promises to gradually reveal all the subtleties, noting the wit of the son. With a casual smile, the protagonist asks not to overload him. Inside cannot but admire. The truth is revealed, surrounded by Renaruta working parents. Looking at the political background, one of the present adds that the essence of the king's words is clear, but the complexity of the situation is only increasing. They stand in front of a powerful Magnolia empire, and especially face to face with the son of Rainer Baldia, known as the best sword of the state. Moreover, the possession of this famous warrior is adjacent to their borders, which only adds tension and caution in the relationship. Nevertheless, he understands that the circumstances are in their favor. History opens a curtain over the fact that there are two main supports in the military structure of the Magnolia Empire: the sword owned by the Marquis Rainer Baldi, and the shield for which the Marquis Kelvin Grade is responsible. Even despite the awareness of the strategic importance of these roles, the person is hesitant, which indicates the presence of serious risks. Proudly standing in the middle of the hall, noble Norris Tamuska firmly states, "A better alliance for his people than marriage to the imperial family is not worth looking for." The attendees are surrounded by his support, fervently tapping this proposal. However, not all like-minded people in this case. One of the present is sharply aware of the true purpose of Norris. He seeks to take advantage of the future marriage as an excuse to penetrate the higher circles of imperial politics and to release Renarut from the status of a vassal. Moreover, this observant man suspects that Norris measures to go even further and take possession of the whole empire from within. Once alone with his thoughts, he remembers how the proud dark elf Norris always felt the image, because Renarit was not perceived on an equal footing. Now this plan seems to him as a decisive attempt to change the situation, even if you have to take the risk of a whole country. Full of determination, the racist goes to the office rapidly, interrupting his father. Without spending time on detour maneuvers, he directly declares his suspicions. His father allegedly intends to give his younger sister headlights and hostages of the empire. He is just surprised. Where did such nonsense come from? But Rasses stands on his own, clearly letting know that he has heard it from Norris and is not going to ignore. Even because there are only 6 years and no country will allow marrying at that age, a guy with icy determination states that it does not matter. It is now important to the very principle and the threat that hangs, not the age of the sister. The outbreak of anger in the eyes of the flight. It does not restrain the indignation, demanding from the father explanations. Why do you have to go so far? Instead, a strict answer leaves no place for doubt. Such actions are necessary to unite countries. Not everything in the world is subject to clear laws. Sometimes the rules should be violated. The father reminds his son that the burden of the crown will lie on his shoulders, and he must learn not only to evaluate the situation, but also to make rigid decisions. Emotions covered by the racist are not able to accept it. Even despite political logic, he exclaims that he cannot agree with such a decision. The father of his father is escorted by Rasses, who goes away. He sadly admits, despite all the good qualities of the prince, he is still too young and easily amenable. The last emotional outbreak only emphasized his childhood inexperience. Rasses's irritation on the face of the Rasses is inner struggle, and, clasping his teeth, he agrees to the order to calm down in his room. Before leaving, he apologizes for the extra words. With a gloomy look and lowered head, making his way to the corridors, he unexpectedly collides with 2 strangers. One of the figures attracts his attention, forcing a moment to stop. To his surprise, this heading comes out of his room, a rare and unusual event. The girl is fun-greeted, gently calling him Nui. This is a gentle appeal to his older brother. She explains that she was heading to the mother's room because she was called. Not hiding curiosity, the headlight is interested in what he does here. Forcing himself to smile, the flight tries to answer what he only spoke with his dad, but he cooked him and ordered him to come to his senses. The headlight cannot believe what he heard. It is surprised that his father really cooked him. Races contemplate the headlamp with tenderness, noticing in it a striking similarity to their mother. Beautish herself. The girl's young age does not interfere with her dignity and sophistication. These qualities were formed through strict education and relentless daily guidelines. Smiling gently and holding a flower, she silently thanks for her victory. For him, the headlight was and remains the biggest reason for pride and happiness. The headlamp says goodbye to the races, politely bowing, and then, together with his guard, goes to the mother's mother. He watches silently how his sister goes away. A decisive view adds confidence. It finally strengthens its internal decision. The headlamp will never become either forgotten or someone's tools. Anything. Determination burns in his view. He is ready to go everything to keep her, even at the cost of his own freedom. The hand, tense facial expression, lifts his head, and pronounces a solemn promise. Among those who left the trace on his path are allies, rivals, and most importantly, Sister Farah. He swears with his best, "I promise protect my younger sister." No power will make him renounce this oath. No danger will stop it on the way to save the headlights. Rid is determined and ready to accept any challenge. The flow of memories that joined him through the magic of memory struck him to the depths of his soul. Awareness of the chaotic confusion that is filled with these passages of the past causes him despair and confusion. Meanwhile, he explains that new magic works like a bridge. Every time he turns to his memory in his own mind, he spends manu not other than during a telephone conversation with a fated payment. Despite this, curiosity takes the mountain. The technique is again in action. The desire to open no longer releases. Collizing the image of memory again, he asks that the new manage to find out about the main story of Tokarela, while trying not to be distracted by a strict moral lesson that is filled with internal dialogue. The protagonist Rid, at this moment, is trying his best to mention the main line of the story of the game Tokarela. At the heart, he recognizes he was playing without reading the dialogues. All the time he pressed. The dependence on this game was frantic, but most of the time he gave not a story campaign, but an additional mode. He tried to understand more, so he decided to turn to his own memory, hoping to get to the truth. But even the magic of help brings only vague, torn memories, as if covered with a piece of paper. Memory is not able to make a clear picture of what is left. It was only mentioned that the game was in the style of Cinderella. Princesses from different kingdoms were romantic interests. One of the characters, probably from the Rena, was named Rape, easy to train and use. And yet, because he ignored most history, now almost emptiness reigns in his head. The protagonist persistently explores the limits of memory magic, asking what memories are subjected to access. The answer sounds unambiguous. Only those memories from the past life, which the hero really paid attention, can be restored. These can be online video, textbooks from school, or any information he studied consciously and focused. Instead, foggy fragments, random conversations with strangers, ignored advertising or complaints of colleagues, remain outside the memory or return extremely slowly and indistinctly. Nevertheless, he does not leave attempts and appeals to memory to correct everything. It is reluctant, but still agreeing. Memory is taken to the case, comparing this task with the restoration of a document from shredders of torn paper. There is an impossible business, but there is a chance for success. Among the frantic workout, the genius tries not to keep up with the lightning movements of the mentors, but the exhaustion quickly takes its own. It falls to the ground, breathes hard and complains about the exercise. While he comes to his senses, the careful look of the mentor does not come out of the guy. A moment of transition to a different level comes. The teacher announces that he will teach Rita to strengthen the body with a mana, a concept unfamiliar to the young man. Hearing this word for the first time, Rid cannot hide surprise. It is fascinated by the desire to become stronger. The main character is wondering whether it is enough to imagine his own power. The answer to the mentor does not leave the room for illusions. This opinion is too vague. In order to fill the body with mana and in fact strengthen it, it is necessary to combine two skills: the ability to generate manu and a basic understanding of the martial arts, which means to master the movement of your body. The master emphasizes, it is in vain to know how to control the mana if the body does not obey. The key is that your own movements become one with the flow of mana. Until this connection becomes something completely natural and almost machine. In night silence, repetitions become a habit, because it is here that you should feel, not think. When you master this art, Breathing is leveled and the body is almost tireless. The radio does not hide its surprise, but at the same time it is annoyed by this simplicity, typical of people who think only by muscles. During the workout, something strange catches the eye of the protagonist. He addresses Rubens with the question, "Did he use Mona reinforcement all the time?" Rubens only smiles indifferently without even hiding the obvious. Rita feels a real shock. Finally comes why he could not keep the same rhythm. While he was tired almost instantly, Rubens seemed to train forever, not knowing a hint of exhaustion. The whole thing was in mani, which he constantly used to support his own strength. Imaginated and stretched on the floor, Rid for the first time realized he competed not with a person, but with an opponent who never ends with energy, while his own reserve was scanty from the beginning. With a firm intention in the voice, the protagonist states that he just captures the art of strengthening the body of mana, will certainly win his mentor. A decisive look and a bold smile testify he is not going to retreat. Battle energy also picks up Rubens. Captured by the call, he immediately accepts the competition and offers a new way of training, a jogging all over the training field, during which it is necessary to constantly direct the manu through the body. For Rubens, this is the best sports test. Exhausting but effective. Glazing, Raid in his thoughts, is tuned to win, and understands that to match the mentor, you will have to put on 100. During training, the main character notices a strange change. Fatigue is almost not felt. Unusual lightness fills the body. Thinking about it, he realizes it is the result of magic with Sandra, which finally bear fruit. Rubens does not hide pleasure, noting the rapid progress of the guy. He emphasizes, to choose the path of double skill, combining magic and martial arts, is an invaluable gift. Even despite the surprise, the significant progress of the boys, Ruben admits with enthusiasm. The genius has withstood training without any techniques of strengthening the body. Sweepfully smiling, the main character jokes, perhaps in 10 years he is equal to the level of his mentor. Feeling the mana raging in each cell after a rapid race, the hero is set up to a new stage of training. Rubens heads the workout, tirelessly setting the pace with squeezing, twisting, and simple physical exercises. Now the body is constantly tense, the mana enhances every movement. A new goal is stronger in the head, to surpass Rubens. With each session, the determination only increases. And here are the days full of struggle and intense training next to an experienced mentor. The opponents do not retreat. Once every time, the main character is constantly moving to the goal. With full confidence in Rid's eyes looks closely at Rubens, full of determination today to get down. In response, Rubens, we are elucidated by ahead of each movement, only smiles and again challenges, hinting that Rita has a lot to know. Despite all the efforts made, the guy almost does not feel fatigue. Since he has mastered the art of strengthening the body, training has ceased to be a difficult duty and have become a real pleasure. Inside, a new feeling is woke up as if something invisibly changed. However, the relentless reality still presses on the shoulders. They are not only shared by skill, experience, scope, weight, and size create an insurmountable abyss. The genius understands, let it even become more powerful, to defeat the opponent to him yet to the strength, but the distance between them is reduced with every moment. Each defeat only ignites in the main character the unbreakable desire for victory. Instead of despair, every fall inspires it to fight even more. Grabbing for the opportunity to use the advantage of growth over Rubens, he sharply shortens the distance, thirsty for at least once to hit a blow or a cop. The exhaustion does not stop it and close. The vigilant look does not make the target, and somewhere inside is a stubborn belief. The forces are still left, so you can move on. During the training, the hero again defeats Rubens, which effortlessly holds him and warns, the opponent is already unarmed. Despite this, the young man does not seem to believe in defeat to the end. The admiration is the unbreakable stubbornness of the guy, who does not seem even without a sword. Without losing passion, he asks another round, and Rubens stops training, explaining that it is worth fighting with his weight. The hero, confused and a little upset, realizes the path to the goal is still long, but the first steps have already been taken. Ruben points out that everything that happened before was only a warm-up, which is amazing the main character. Then the news flies, as soon as a special mentor appeared, and a wave of interest has taken on the hero. While he tries to comprehend this information, The awareness of the unexpected complexity of training is stunning the guy. What seemed like a possible was only an entry into a real test. It is at this point that a mysterious figure appears from the shadows, apologizing for late. The protagonist suddenly understands. True difficulties are just beginning. Frozen under the impression of the sudden appearance of the majestic father, Rainer Sam himself, the guy barely hides both excitement and delight. Rainer, while keeping an indispensable posture, calmly asks whether the son has already got used to harsh training. The unexpected appearance of the father marks the beginning of an even tense test for the main character. The guy is stunned by the news. Immediately after a clash with Rubens, his next rival will become a native father. Despite the excitement, a passionate desire to finally find out what the father has, and how much he has grown during this time, Rainer calls for a son to give up a duel to the full, without holding any opportunity, even using the strengthening of the body with the help of mana. For a moment the guy fades in indecision, but he quickly gathers with the spirit. He squeezes a sword firmly in his hands. A confident smile appears on his face. He is quite ready to take a duel. Captured by determination, the guy rushes to his father, strengthening his body. His movements become lightning, and power is indomitable. The powerful pressure of a young warrior speaks for himself. With what passion and confidence he strikes. Rainer reflects the attack with curiosity and admiration, without casting a look from his son. An experienced fighter notes himself. At such an age, not everyone is capable of managing combat skills and managing mana. And even deep inside the shadow of anxiety, this guy can already poses a serious threat to the battlefield. Despite fatigue and bruising, the guy does not seem. He is suffocated, but full of determination. He rises from the earth and insists, this is not the end. Father, Smills, looks at his son with a hidden pride, satisfied with his unbreakable will. This time the initiative is intercepted by the father. He rapidly takes a fighting position and warns, now the turn after him. The guy, narrowing his eyes, is intensely preparing to call face to face. Despite the huge difference in power, the guy, exhausted and suffocated, does not stop fighting, squeezing the last strength. From a powerful blow the guy throws to the ground. He knees, trembling with exhaustion and barely keeping his balance. Nevertheless, the father notes his efforts, praising for a well-completed task and announcing that he had testing with a wooden sword. Stunned by the unexpected power of a duel and exhaustion that he never knew, the young man is surprised to understand that the abyss between the struggle with Rubens and the clash with his own father was much larger than he thought. After testing with a wooden sword, the guy hears a new challenge from his father. He wants to see more determination, unbreakable will. Initially the guy is lost, but he quickly guesses. It is not about physical strength, but about the unwavering of the spirit, the ability to remain calm and go forward, despite difficulties. The man confirms that this endurance becomes crucial in real battles, because the ability to maintain calm often depends on whether you remain alive. He advises the boy first to know his own boundaries, and in the air is already feeling the approach of a new test. The father carefully examines the real sword, carefully checking his condition. Such an unexpected occupation of the father is noticeably embarrassed by the boy. He is interested in anxiety in his voice, which requires this weapon. In response, instead of a direct answer, the man just smiles mysteriously. They say, the guy really deserves training. But suddenly on his face there is a seriousness. He asks to complete the task. To die in place, not to change posture and not to look away, which would not happen around. Although the nerves squeeze the main character, the determination takes the mountain. He accepts the challenge without hesitation. In the meantime, the father is focused on the duel. He occupies a battle rack and warns of his readiness to start. The air thickens the strange, unknown tension. Something invisible, but unbearably heavy hanging over the guy. The father's aura presses with such a force that the hero has never felt. Not even moving out of place, he becomes clear. In front of him, something far more powerful than everything he could imagine. The main character's father, pulling the sword from the steel, radiates a devastating aura. The space around is distorted, and the air seems heavy, as if compressed. There is a real combat energy. At the same moment, the guy feels a creepy force. It was not just a demonstration of power, a real desire to kill in the air. The guy freezes, contacting his father's real murderous desire. The forces betray him. He drops to his knees, breathes hard, barely holding back tremor. The realization that his father did not intend to hurt him did not dilute shock. Real steel, a sharp intention to kill. He survived for the first time, and these feelings were undivided. However, the father recognizes his courage, because for his age the guy showed extraordinary firmness and dignity. The guy with sincere repentance recognizes his mistake, and his father, having reacted calmly, only points out, everyone starts that way. It is minus. An important stage in the way of growing up the young man comes when his father shares with him the true basis of future skill. Listening to each word, the guy learns that the next line in learning is to master courage, endurance, and unwavering. The father explains that you should not run away from fear or hide it. It is important to accept it and learn to live next to this feeling. After all, on a real battlefield, this determination becomes the key to survival. In the look of the boy, determination broke out, and the renovated spirit no longer knew doubts. He has proudly raised his head with a challenge, feeling the unbreakable desire to become stronger. With a smile, Rubens notes that the methods of Rainer Assam's are quite unusual and not at all like those that he could convey himself through his position. But despite this, he has genuinely encouraged the boy, wishing him success. Rainer, full of determination and confidence, warns, "The next attack is inevitable." He appeals to the guy for not to look away and closely monitor his every movement. The next blow will be part of the learning, and the protagonist must take him without fear. The father attacks again, lightly waving his sword, and the son without hesitation meets this attack face to face. The blade seems so real that it seems as if it can really roll the body. Cold fear mastered, forcing him to tremble. However, the guy understands that this test is needed. If she dreams of staying alive on a real battlefield, he has to learn how to withstand such pressure now. Cold horror squeezes the inside, but stability does not break it. The hero's gaze stubbornly rests on his father's sword. Fear makes it trembling, but he does not allow himself to close his eyes. Certainly and decisively catches every movement, carefully monitors every stroke of the blade. This is the only way to a true understanding. He decides not to close his eyes, boldly contemplating the trajectory that his father's sword goes. The guy gathered with thoughts, not looking even for a moment. Despite fatigue and accelerated breathing, it is adamant. The father notices his son's efforts, and notes that he is already getting used to the exercise. But as soon as the guy has time to exhale as much as they announce a new test. Surprised that the path is not completed yet, he squeezes his fists and answers with determination, ready to go on. The following test is proclaimed. Rid should overcome the limit and reach Rubens. His father, squeezing a sword firmly, warns, he will not stop at anything to prevent it. In response to Rubens' support, the guy with determination accepts the challenge, knowing how difficult it will be to keep up with his father's attacks. However, full of courage, he is preparing to try his strength. The guy is strongly rushing forward, but his father reacts instantly with incredible speed. With a quick cut, he intercepts the path, forcing the guy to instantly evade. The rapid impact caught the boy by surprise. Barely having time to respond, he realizes that he seriously underestimated this match. The guy recovers after a preliminary blow and strongly directs his eyes to his father, who is quietly waiting for him. Despite the fatigue, hope is opened inside. This time, everything can happen differently. The body has already been adjusted to the beat of the struggle, and the desire for victory is stronger with every moment. Full of determination, he makes a promise, one day to surpass his father's sword skill, and then take another step forward. The smile of genuine joy blooms on the boy's face as soon as he notices Rubens. They exclaims enthusiastically, rejoicing in an unexpected meeting. With frantic dedication, he rushes into the arms of a friend, demonstrating an indomitable connection between them. Tears turn into Rubens's eyes. He moves the boy, moving on the fact that he came to him. Meanwhile, the protagonist is aware of the difference between the rigid workout and the severe seriousness of his father's fencing skills. Rainer, watching this scene, smiles with pleasure and announces the completion of the class, promising to participate in training from now on. Rainer mercilessly reports that every workout will now be extremely rigid. The boys are stunned by this news. Rubens, with a light smile, watches everything, noting that Rainer always sought to show how to train with his son joyfully. The guy realized it, and realized for the first time. Even a harsh father shows care, just doing it in his own way. Little Mel Streamhead runs to his older brother, calling him an excited voice. Suddenly tapped, he rotates sharply, surprised by her hurry. One of the women immediately wondered what happened. However, Mel is closer without any hesitation, inflating his lips and depicting an abusive grimace. A clear anxiety was read in the look. Something clearly did not rest. Mel rushes forward, strikes his father with despair, and shouts the allegations of his brother. The cry of hatred breaks out so loud that the present fades with surprise. The maid apologizes, explaining that the melody insisted on meeting her brother even during the workout. She only asked the girl to listen to Ruben's remarks about a guy covered with scratches, but the melody stubbornly blows her lips and repeats through tears that she hates him. With a smile on the face, Mel pulls his brother behind, joyfully reporting the completion of the workout. A few minutes ago, she was angry, but now does not hide excitement. Rid smiles with tenderness, though he understands that Mel is still offended by his father. She notes on herself what caring sister she remains without even understanding the whole situation. Reflections return Rita to strict parental education. There was a concern for his son, the desire to help. But despite this, Mel does not retreat and confidently states, she still hates her father. A few days have passed, and Reed's father is bitterly regretted that he still believes in the hatred of the melody to him. However, to one's own surprise, suddenly she appears in the door, goes to the room and apologizes for what she once said about her hatred. From sincerity, Mel's father does not restrain the tears heard to the depths of his soul. Everyone around recognizes her act as a true feat.